Hey, Tisa Burrs. Hey, hey, hey. Sorry I'm late. Hey, Tisa Burrs. It's going down. It's going. Hey, Tisa Burrs. It's going down. It's going down. Donald Trump's whole world's upside down. Sleep don't come easy. Hey y'all, I hope y'all had an awesome day. I don't know where to start. I know yesterday I had to end when it was just so deep yesterday. Oh my God. Last night we tapped into a guy who went undercover in this XXX trafficking with Epstein and others. I'm just not gonna say Trump and Diddy. I'm not gonna do that. In Colombia, he went way undercover. He exposed a lot of the details, which, like I mentioned last night, it makes sense because when we be trying to think of how Diddy could, to think like Diddy and who does this and who does that and why would somebody do this and why would somebody do that and why she, the females, the ones that's doing this. It's just, some of that stuff began to make a whole lot of sense. How normal people think is not how these human traffickers, especially of minors, think. How they operate, our minds just typically would not go or think like that. It just wouldn't. I mean, we heard some bizarre SHIT last night. It was mind-blowing how this federal undercover that went to Colombia to get into the sex trafficking, XXX trafficking trade. Says a lot of money, and how they market or sell or negotiate with these minors. Oh my God, with no kilometers, 0 kilometers, meaning virgins, kids. And how they, of course, charge extra for them. And they even went, it got really, really dark when the trafficker made mention of how they could resell what did they call them? It didn't call them mine. How did they call them? It didn't say prospects. He gave it another name that had no kilometers or had no mileage on them. even if they have been used before, they would ask, there's a service that they could go in and pay $2,000 to have their hymen put back in there. That blew my mind. I am not going to even lie. That blew my mind. How far ahead these people, these sick-minded people, have figured out ways to making one already trafficking these minors. So one of the little boy, he must have been about 7, 8, 9 or something. They had to give him, excuse me, a PILL. Okay. Hi, U1404 nurse. They had to give him a PILL even to come out like and be showcased out of fear. The man said that you could just to hear them crying as they were about to be put on display. It was just horrific. I just had never in my life. And I think where we ended, and I told them last night that I was going to pick up where we ended because it was just so much. Please come in, hitting the like button. As you can hear, I'm not feeling too good. But I had promised that I was going to come back today. But before that, I think around the time that we were ending, he said that there is a retreat, a hotel that is set up as if it is a retreat. That's actually a hotel where they are marketing and selling, pimping out the kids. They are in the rooms waiting to be taken advantage of. And he said that the guys that were there were businessmen. They didn't look like the dirty white van, you know. I don't know why it's bleeping. They didn't look like the dirty white van, you know, the SA or whoever. I said SA, but that's not necessarily the case because they didn't look like that. These were professional businessmen. Oh, Lord, what is this?
But, you know, when the president called and asked if I would take the job.
Trump ass in trouble, baby. He know why. He know why he don't want that list.
They have a wire transfer.
He know exactly why.
So who's going to quit first? Is it going to be?
He know exactly why. It has been a horrible few days for him. He's sick to his stomach. What's going on? She gone down. He's sick. Hey, Ashley. He's sick to his stomach. Hi, Ivan. He's acting like he don't know what's going on. Why we still talking about the list? He knew what was going on. He knew Epstein when he was his I don't know why it's bleeping. He knew when he was his best friend for 15 years that he was into fooling with minors. He knew that. When he was talking about he was a pretty nice dude that like real young girls. Yeah. I think that Trump knows that he did not kill himself or unalive himself. I don't necessarily think that that girl who was a whistleblower, I don't necessarily think that she unalived herself. Now, she may have with all the stress and the drama and stuff, but I don't believe none of it. I think people disappear because they knew entirely too much. And we have no idea. And when I say no idea how deep this mess is, so y'all please, where is Mark? His name was Marcus. Last night when I was gonna shut it down because the lights wasn't up, he was like, please don't. Please don't. I you know, it was that deep. It was absolutely mind blowing. It was sickening, but it gave us an idea of how we would never, no one would never figure out Diddy. Let's be clear. We would, to say why this or why that or why he was in court and all that type of stuff, you know, who would and why was the girls calling it. We would never, and I do mean never, understand the mindset of these traffickers. Hey, Christine. No, I didn't hear him say that. I didn't hear him say that. But I wouldn't be surprised. He knows. But listen here. It's funny, you know, why Trump is now trying to put it on the Democratic Party. You know, first there was a tape, then it was, why are we talking about there is no list. I'm sorry, not tape, list. And then yesterday he started saying, when he was doing that "Why Y'all Betraying Me" letter, he was saying that it was the, where's all this TikTok stuff there? Democratic Party who put the list together. So there is a list. Hashiba. Yeah, he panicking. He's saying he doing the "Why Have Thou Forsaken Me" yesterday. The names they won't reveal. Oh my God. Okay, y'all. And what is this? Before I start playing that, I'm trying to let some of the people who were here last night come in. And I'm seeing this. Hold on. Trump darkest past surface. Aide loses control. What is this?
Be the FBI director, Kash Patel? Is it going to be the deputy FBI director, Dan Bongino? Is it going to be the attorney general, Pam Bondi, who seems to be digging in her heels? It is a cluster, you know what, and all things are imploding in the Trump regime right now, in the FBI and the DOJ, after that memo came out from Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer turned number 2, the deputy attorney general, Todd Blanche, who put out this memo and said there's no such thing as an Epstein list. There's no such thing as Epstein files. Nothing incriminating to see here, folks. We're shutting down the investigation. Oh, and by the way, let us show you this video. Take this surveillance footage, which we purport to be the surveillance footage taken outside of Epstein's prison cell before he died. And we're going to have 1 minute missing. Oh, and by the way, if you do an analysis of the metadata as forensic experts did with Wired, it turns out it was put through Adobe Premiere. It was a number of videos cut and pasted and manipulated together. Oh, and you dig deeper, Donald Trump wanted to give a pardon to Ghislaine Maxwell a few years back, or when Donald Trump was in his first term. That's what was going on. Let's dig deeper, folks, and let's talk about what's going down. So Dan Bongino and any other administration, I would say, the FBI, which they do right now, they were right-wing podcasters. They were out there saying, we're going to release the Epstein files right away. They were saying that the Epstein files is the biggest issue that MAGA should be focused on. It was all day, all time. One of their big issues was Epstein, the secret cabal that was being run. They were going to expose it all. Then they get jobs in the Trump regime, and then they are pushed to cover up the Epstein list. Then why? It's very simple. I've done so many videos on this, so I don't want to seem redundant, but Trump's going to be all over the list and all over the files and whatever else exists. How do I know this? Because Trump is Doe 174.
Doe 174. Can somebody put that in the comment section?
One of the people around Epstein, it's Doe 1.
I'm not, Doe 174. Doe 174. Doe 174 is Trump. His ass in trouble.
Then they get jobs in the Trump regime, and then they are pushed to cover up the Epstein list that of the metadata as forensic experts did with Wired.
They ran on transparency.
Premiere. It was a number of videos cut and pasted and manipulated together. Oh, and you dig deeper, Donald Trump wanted to give a pardon to Ghislaine Maxwell a few years back, or when Donald Trump was in his first term. That's what was going on. Let's dig deeper, folks, and let's talk about what's going down. So Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, before leading the FBI, which they do right now, they were right-wing podcasters. They were out there saying, we're going to release the Epstein files right away. They were saying that the Epstein files is the biggest issue that MAGA should be focused on. It was all day, all time. One of their big issues was Epstein, the secret cabal that was being run. They were going to expose it all. Then they get jobs in the Trump regime, and then they are pushed to cover up the Epstein list. Then why? It's very simple. I've done so many videos on this, so I don't want to seem redundant, but Trump's going to be all over the list and all over the files and whatever else exists. How do I know this? Because Trump is Doe 174. He's in the files. He's identified as one of the people around Epstein as Doe 174. Trump identified himself being around Epstein. Back in 2002, he said Epstein's a great guy who likes women on the younger side. Epstein used Mar-a-Lago as one of the areas where he found the girls he sex trafficked. Virginia Giuffre, who recently died by suicide, was homeless at the age of 17. She got a job at Mar-a-Lago. What happens next? Ghislaine Maxwell, close friends with Donald Trump. He wished her well at her sex trafficking case, where she was basically put away for life. She would go into Mar-a-Lago. She found Virginia Giuffre, brought an underage girl who was working at Mar-a-Lago.
Hi, Corbin.
To Epstein, and Epstein sex trafficked her. That was the pipeline that existed. Trump is all over Epstein's flight logs that were released, and only a small portion was released. Trump is in the black book that was released. Trump is in deposition transcripts that says the sex trafficking victims would go to Atlantic City with Epstein, go to Trump's properties there. And he was homeless at the age of 17. She got a job at Mar-a-Lago. What happens next? Ghislaine Maxwell, close friends with Donald Trump. He wished her well at her sex trafficking case, where she was basically put away for life.
He knew all of these people. He was friends with all of them. But I'm going to play something in a minute that's going to blow y'all mind. Let's keep going.
She would go into Mar-a-Lago. She found Virginia Giuffre, brought an underage girl who was working at Mar-a-Lago to Epstein, and Epstein sex trafficked her. That was the pipeline that existed. Trump is all over Epstein's flight logs that were released, and only a small portion was released. Trump is in the black book that was released. Trump is in deposition transcripts that says the sex trafficking victims would go to Atlantic City with Epstein, go to Trump's properties there. A 14-year-old girl who is now a woman, but 14 years old at the time, who testified in the Ghislaine Maxwell sex trafficking case, said that she was introduced to Donald Trump when she was a 14-year-old underage girl. I can keep going on and on and on, but there are so many connections. Donald Trump seen partying with Epstein. They were super close friends. They got into a fight in 2004 over a real estate project, and Epstein said that he broke up the relationship with Trump, if anything. So Donald Trump knows he's going to be all over this because he is all over it to begin with. So I've always said to you all, why are they making this their biggest issue when Trump is going to be all over? In any event, Bongino Patel said they would release it. Now they're not releasing.
I mean, do we really know that she unalived herself? They said Epstein unalived himself, and there's a whole minute and a half or a minute of the tape that was altered. We don't know. But that is what they said. That is what they said. But at this point, I'm going to be honest. I don't trust none of that. No, we don't know that. Yeah, there was, remember, there was a list, and it wasn't. There is none. Now he's saying, there's a list, but the Democrats put it together. Oh, why y'all betraying me? Yeah, I don't believe none of that.
And they are pissed. As Mary Margaret Olahan reports, source close to the DOJ says that Kash Patel also wants Pam Bondi gone, wants her fired, and that he'd consider leaving if Bongino leaves. Also, that there are more frustrations with other documents Bondi hasn't released. Now, whether it's this.
Absolutely, Corbin. Because when they was in that White House meeting and they was about to size Pam Bondi up, when someone said that tape was missing like a minute, that's when Trump Donald Diaper, I had another, he was DDD, I can't think of it, jumped in there. It's like, what are we doing? Are we still talking? Are we still talking about Epstein? He had to come in and deflect and start gaslighting. You know, we have this, as soon as he mentioned that tape being altered, he started his panic. I can't think of what them DDDs. There's a Donald Doodle diaper or something. I don't remember. It was crazy. But let's keep going. Oh my goodness.
Single list, multiple files. As I've said before, I can tell you where I would look just to find the files of Donald Trump. Please produce all documents relating to Doe 174. Produce all grand jury testimony from the 14-year-old victim who was referenced.
He started panicking, baby.
Case. I want all of the other flight logs. I want all of these surveillance footage, all communications between Epstein and Trump, all visits to Mar-a-Lago. Give me all of the surveillance tapes. Give me all. It'd be very easy to find what exists out there, especially as it relates to Donald Trump. Because in the fraction that exists, that was turned over, assume there's probably 10% that's already out there, 90% remaining. In that 10%, there's all that stuff that I've just mentioned of Donald Trump. Now, the right-wing influencers are pissed. Cat turd, they have it out. They want Bondi gone. They go, if Pam Bondi to address the Epstein debacle, she's delusional. She should have a long press conference days ago. Robbie Starbuck, another MAGA influencer, goes, if it's Dan Bongino or Pam Bondi, there's absolutely no contest. You can't replace Dan with someone better, but you can absolutely replace Pam with someone better. Pam should resign or be fired this weekend. Her fumbling of the Epstein case is hurting the entire administration of this point. Alan Smith of NBC News writes, Bongino is out of control, furious. A person who has spoken with Deputy FBI Director said, this has destroyed his career. He's threatening to quit and torch Pam Bondi unless she is fired. And here is Pam Bondi right there, and she's not going anywhere. Megyn Kelly says, can confirm it's Bongino or Bondi, and the pick is obvious. Bondi must go. And just so you know, someone like Dan Bongino, he was out there making a lot of money off of talking about Epstein this, Epstein that. And now he's viewed as the deep state that he was railing against. He's Mr. Deep State right now. So he knows he's done. He knows he's over unless he can get rid of Bondi. And
oh, girl, what did you just do? Unless he can get rid of who? Bondi.
And he could become the hero in his own fascist cosplay narrative right here. I do want to show you this side by side, though, because I feel it's very revealing. Our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, put this together. On the left, how you build a right-wing talk show audience. On the right, after becoming FBI deputy director. Here, play this clip.
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee-deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. Outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to get... I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Now, folks, there was also signs that Bongino was pretty soft a month ago or so, where he went on Fox and he was whining about how hard his job is, as though like he never worked a job before in his life. He's like, I gotta show up to work, and I gotta go to an office every morning. And you could even see the Fox hosts are looking at him as he's like, it's been a tough one on the family. You know, it's been so tough for me. And here's just watch this here. Play this clip.
What did you think the job was going to be like? What is it like?
You know, the biggest lifestyle change for me has been family-wise. I mean, we already went through this with my time in the Secret Service. But, you know, when the president called and asked if I would take the job, you know, you can't tell your audience for years, go out and do stuff, talk is cheap. And then when the opportunity comes to do stuff, but I didn't mean me, you know, I meant you. It's kind of you're a fraud. I mean, you don't sound like a fraud, you are one. So it was a lot. It's been tough on the family. People ask me all the time, you know, do you like it? I say, no, I don't. But I didn't.
Ain't that a song to sing?
To like it, you know, nobody likes going into an organization like that and having to change things and make big bold changes. But you know, I was at one of our facilities yesterday down in Winchester, and a woman who worked there, very nice, said, you know, I used to watch your show. I miss you. I said, you know, I miss me too. You know, part of you, part of you dies a little bit when you see all this stuff from behind the scenes.
And I'll show you another clip of him whining right here. Here, play this clip.
Not whining.
I gave up everything for this. I mean, you know, my wife is struggling. I'm not a victim. I'm not Jim Comey. It's fine. I did this and I'm proud I did it. But if you think we're there for tea and crumpets, well, I mean, Cash is there all day. We share it. Our offices are linked. He turns on the faucet. I hear it. He's there he gets in at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't leave till 7 at night. You know, I'm in there at 7:30 in the morning.
Is he whining?
I work out in my apartment, but I stare at these four walls all day in D.C. You know, by myself, divorced from my wife. Not divorced, but I mean separated, divorced, and it's hard. I mean, you know, we love each other, and it's hard to be apart.
But you're doing some great work. You're sitting out at the FBI, and you're moving buildings. There's a lot of change.
Now, here's what Laura Loomer says. Here's her scoop, and she's got a lot of good sources in the White House. Believe it or not. The DOJ is now in chaos, and they are in preservation mode, trying to get Kash Patel and the FBI to defend Scam Blondie. That's what they call Pam Bondi now, Scam Blondie. And AstroTurf, their false narrative that there is no disagreement between Blondie and Bongino. The DOJ is trying to get Kash to say things he doesn't want to say to make Blondie look good, according to a source at the DOJ privy to the discussions. Even Blondie's own team is starting to feel very uncomfortable with her asks to get Cash and Bongino to say things they don't want to say in her defense in light of my exclusive report today about Bongino taking the day off and contemplating resigning from the FBI over Blondie's mishandling of the Epstein files and her lack of transparency.
Scam
So on Friday,
Blondie.
Bongino just runs away from the office, and I'm not showing up to work anymore. I'm done working. So he doesn't show up on Friday. Some people said he didn't show up on Wednesday.
Hey,
He's been
Cynthia.
gone for some time, but he hasn't been working, and so we all think that he's probably gone at this point. And it's possible after I record this, he's gone. So I'll just throw it out there to remind everybody. You had Pam Bondi in February
Sylvia.
saying that the Epstein client list was sitting on her desk and she was going to be ready to release it. Here's what she said. Let's play it.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
Remember, she brought over all those right-wing influencers who
Thank
held
you.
up the Phase 1 Epstein binder. It wasn't new Epstein material.
Yeah, please
it was
hit the
old
like
stuff.
button.
It was Epstein's phone list,
Double
which,
tap
by
the
the way,
screen.
Trump's name was also on that, but they all got redacted versions of that. Friday, there was a big conference that was held at Turning Point USA, big MAGA conference that was held. Charlie Kirk speaking with Megyn Kelly. Here's what went down. Let's play it.
No, we all have busy lives, and President Trump has a busy life, and I don't think he realizes how much he's humiliated the administration. This is a self-inflicted wound. She caused it. Again, I have nothing against Pam Bondi, but if you want to look for the villain in this story, we have found her. She is the person she's either lying now or she was lying then. There's no two ways about it.
Here's what Charlie Kirk says about those influencers who he says Bondi screwed. Let's play it.
So, but Megan, you make a very astute point, and let me add to it, which is that she also brought in some of our best influencers, people that I care about deeply. Jack Posobiec, who's incredible, Libs of TikTok, Chaya, DC Drano.
Yeah.
And she gave them these binders, and she humiliated them.
Yeah.
And you guys know what I'm talking about? Where she did this stuff with the
remember
binders?
this?
And you guys were upset. You shouldn't be upset, the influencers. They were handed these binders like there was something incredible in
It
them.
is what you would do to an enemy.
And let me just remind you, here's Trump partying with Epstein. Here, play this clip.
You're going to get great ratings in your show.
Trump is surrounded by women as music blares in the background. After a while, Trump goes to greet 3 new guests. Among them, the financier Jeffrey Epstein. More than a decade before his guilty plea on state prostitution charges. Later in the footage, Trump is seen talking to Epstein and another man as women are dancing in front of them. Trump alternates between dancing and pointing out women to Epstein and the other man and telling Epstein about the cameras. Though exactly what they say is difficult to understand as they discuss the women and their appearances, Trump gestures to one and appears to say to Epstein, "Look at her back there. She's hot." And then Trump says something else into Epstein's ear that makes him double over with laughter. But as the president says now, he never liked Epstein.
There you have it, folks. Judge for yourself.
He
Who's gonna
never
win?
liked him.
Is it going to be Bongino? Is it going to be Patel? Is it going to be Scam Blondie? Scam Blondie. People are crazy. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers together.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.midastouch.com. 100% USA Union made.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. Hold on. Hold on. What I got over here? Hold on. Y'all, please come in hitting the like button so I can take you there. Take you where, AunTeaFee? Where you trying to take us? Take y'all to some good. I was finna say good ASST. What they say? Hold. Congress has new law to open Trump. He is in a load of trouble. Hold on, where was I at? FBI. Oh. Got the volume up, lady.
Tastier chicken, crunchier pickles. Today we're going to talk about how the disastrous Epstein scandal is tearing the MAGA base apart and the Easter egg put forward by Trump that suggests what he's going to do next. And I've got 2 interviews this week. I speak with Jamie Raskin about what the Judiciary Committee is going to do to compel the Epstein files, and Kara Swisher about Epstein, Elon, and the America Party. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie.
No lie.
I'm not even gonna lie, I was a skeptic when the Epstein stuff first started bubbling to the surface. I'm probably the farthest from a conspiracy guy that you will ever find, and the Epstein stuff always felt very online, and that's coming from me, who is very online. I wasn't convinced about whether or not he killed himself, and I didn't really think it mattered at the end of the day either, but my interest was obviously piqued when Trump lashed out at the beginning of this past week at his cabinet meeting when he yelled at a reporter for talking about Epstein, which I found so weird because half of Trump's cabinet literally built their brands on this exact thing. Bongino, Patel, Bondi, Haba, not to mention a ton of right-wing influencers, this was their issue. And now all of a sudden Trump doesn't want to talk about any of it? But then Saturday rolled along, and the Epstein thing still didn't die, and so Trump posts in the morning that he's going to denaturalize Rosie O'Donnell. He's going to take her citizenship away, which is such an obvious, clear, blatant distraction effort that I started to think, okay, this guy is grasping at straws here. He's obviously trying to train our attention away from what we would normally be talking about, and that was the Epstein stuff. And then came the Truth Social post, heard around the world, a long, rambling screed, but with 2 lines that were especially telling. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration who conned the world with the Russia hoax, 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, and more? And after I read that, I was sold that clearly this guy is hell-bent on hiding something. Like, there is no world where enduring the pain and humiliation and backlash that I'm going to describe in a moment is worth just not releasing whatever you've got. Which tells me that whatever the Trump administration has must be even worse. And the backlash that I had just mentioned was swift and severe. Trump was hit with an absolute deluge from the left and the right of people decidedly not buying into his demands that we all just look away. For the first time ever, he was ratioed on Truth Social, which is the social media platform that he himself owns. Right-wing influencers were either completely fed up or, at best, visibly unconvinced. Here's Benny Johnson's reaction, for example, which I think pretty effectively sums up the response from the entire MAGA base.
Okay. So President Trump has acknowledged that the Epstein files exist here. President Trump has acknowledged that the files were written and that there is something there. He says that they were written, however, by his enemies and therefore will not be released. Whoa, what? That's new.
And look,
He just made that up, didn't he?
Johnson is exasperated. At first, the files were supposedly on Pam Bondi's desk and would be released imminently. Then the files suddenly didn't exist and the case was just closed. And the files then did exist, but they were fakes written by Obama, Clinton, Comey, and Brennan. All very, very plausible stuff. Truly weird how no one seems to be buying it. But then there's a morsel in there that suggests what Trump's going to do in the future. So think about the lengths that Trump goes to in order to convince people of his lies. He said that the 2020 election, for example, was stolen, and he went so far as to incite an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, and then brought on Pam Bondi as Attorney General to prosecute anybody who tried to suggest otherwise. So when he tells a lie, he commits to it 100% because he knows that that's what it takes to con his base, and he also knows that his base is susceptible to being conned. So when Trump says in his Saturday afternoon screed that the Epstein file was written by, quote, Obama, Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration, he may very well be previewing who he's going to go after as part of his effort to convince the base that the clearly incriminating Epstein file is somehow a Democratic plot to take him down. This is what it looks like when Trump lays the groundwork. So look, obviously, I don't know what Trump is going to do next. I don't think Trump knows what Trump is going to do next. But it's worth keeping an eye on this space because two things are true here. First, Trump is clearly backed into a corner, and given the unprecedented reaction from his own base, he's only going to get more desperate and more backed into a corner and lash out even harder as time goes on. And second, we've seen this strategy play itself out before, where he picks a scapegoat and then he goes all in to deflect responsibility by destroying that person or those people. So watch this space, because Trump bats 1,000 at catching Democrats flat-footed, and we're not about to let it happen again. Next up are previews of my interviews with Jamie Raskin and Kara Swisher, but first, just a quick reminder that on one video per week, this one, I have sponsors, so here's a quick word from some sponsors, and then previews of my interviews with Jamie Raskin and Kara Swisher. No lie, wants to get all the supplements they need, but they're collagen protein and nootropics to fuel your brain, boost low acidity, which is easy on sensitive stomach, third-party testing. Get 45% off your first subscription order of 30 servings of Coffee Plus. No Lie is brought to you by Shopify. So when I started my show, my YouTube channel, and my podcast, it seemed like there were a million things to figure out. I had to figure out the scripts and the setup and the filming, the schedule. I had to do my branding. All of it was very overwhelming, and each thing I figured out seemed to lead to more problems to have to figure out. And so in that way, the to-do list keeps on growing. And that's the same thing that takes place no matter what business you're starting. There's always a to-do list that keeps growing every single day with new tasks, and that list can easily begin to overrun your life. And so finding the right tool not only helps you out, but it's ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you ready for Shopify.
Probably one of the biggest questions that we get from our customers was, well, how do you really go about buying gold? One option, including Cash Patel.
We haven't seen happen before. Sign up for your one in your role on judiciary to try and compel some BTC. Shopify.com/BTC. So, Congressman, the Epstein scandal has kind of poured into the spotlight in a way that we haven't seen happen before. What are you able to do in your role on judiciary to try and compel some of the information that clearly it seems like Donald Trump has a vested interest in hiding?
Well, look, every Republican that I've spoken to, whether it's somebody in Congress or just like out in the street, who wants this information to be released, and Donald Trump promised it, J.D. Vance promised it, the whole Republican establishment was behind it, including Attorney General Bondi, including Dan Bongino, including Cash Patel. And so they want it released. And what I'm trying to explain to them is they don't need to convince Donald Trump. They just need to convince the Republicans in Congress. Jim Jordan and the Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee have the subpoena power. So we can have a hearing and just subpoena the Attorney General, subpoena Cash Patel to come in, tell us everything they know, and turn over the client list and turn over the information that not only Republicans but Democrats have been demanding since the Biden administration. I mean, I called for this several years ago. You know, Epstein's a convicted sex offender who was running a child sex ring. Bad. Gone, so his prosecution's over, so there can be no prejudice there. And then meantime, you've got the President of the United States and all these other officials saying that there's a client list and that there's evidence of this sex ring taking place. And rather than have the whole country divided and in an uproar about it, let's just come clean, and they should show us what they've got. Pam Bondi said it was on her desk. Take it off of her desk and bring it over to Congress. So I'm sending a letter on Monday.
He's sick, y'all.
Chairman Jordan saying, let's just have a hearing and let us disclose whatever the government has to the people of the United States.
So we, the people, want to know. Impediment then to being able to subpoena whatever information exists?
Well, I don't know that he is an impediment. I mean, we haven't spoken about it yet. I think everybody assumed the administration horrible big press conference release situation where it was just a bunch of recycled flotsam and jetsam, but people want to know what is really in there. And look, we don't want doctored evidence. We don't want fabricated evidence. If all of it was made up, then the public's got a right to know. If it wasn't made up, if it's real, we've got a right to know what names are on there. And now with Donald Trump going out on a limb and saying, "Oh, just leave me alone. Let's just
leave me alone."
Didn't happen. People are asking the question why.
To what extent do you think that this is going to
leave me alone
lasting impact on his popularity with those people versus, the usual thing I think we expect from Republicans, which is
he got his diaper on saying, "Leave me alone. Leave me alone." Shitting on himself. Diaper full. Oh, that funky. Leave me alone. Why are we talking about this? No. Let's go back to MAGA, making America great again. Why are y'all betraying me? He is having a whole meltdown tantrum. That's what your ass get.
Maybe a few days of some consternation.
And you got
everybody comes back home.
On top of having a $40 million bounty on your head from Iran.
That's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, the regular Republicans who are just being quislings, who don't really like what he's doing or don't like a lot of things, but they're fearful of him, never believe this. So it wasn't really their animating factor. So they'll just stay the same. They'll stay.
Oh wow, Mrs. Tom.
And acquiescent forever.
They've been messing up. It's been in the back of his pants. Shit. Had the nerve to have on a diaper on the golf course and anyway. Somebody needs to be fired. You're fired. Cause they say he funky as hell. They need to get some lavender wet wipes. They need to get some with a scent on it. What's that stuff for the what is that spray stuff they got for black women for the coochie? Not Massengill, but the one that say it'll cut that smell right on out. Cut the smell right on out. They need to Lysol his ass. Wet wipe his ass. Cornstarch his ass. Yeah. Because he's a big old baby Huey. And they on his ass. Yeah. Absolutely. Let's go.
The other ones, the Roseanne Barrs, the Alex Jones, the Laura Loomers, that gang is angry, and they expected a lot more from Kash Patel, especially, and Dan Bongino, who would go on and on about this conspiracy theory. So these are the people that put these people on this almost sugar high of conspiracy theories. And now, when they're like, "Oh, actually, they come off of it," like they're deep in the hole.
Pop. What is the name of that?
They're disappointed. As crazy as they may be,
they're
also disappointed. That said, they never seem to blame Trump for this. They're aiming at Bongino and Bondi.
Pam Bondi, as if Pam Bondi has shown herself to be like some neutral or independent figure. I mean, all of these people are completely under the thumb of Donald Trump.
Right, exactly. I mean, and also she's just been inept. I mean, the ineptitude away from everything by putting these binders out that didn't have anything in them, and then saying she had a list because she's such a thirsty person on Fox News. She's got to say something.
Yeah, he needs
she
some
needs to shut up. For a lawyer, she talks too much. One of the things she should have been doing was managing expectations here, and saying less. And in this case, they just kind of come out with it in a kind of random, haphazard way, right? Rather than really preparing their group for, look, we looked into it. This is what it is. Let us show you. Let us walk through this. So it's kind of a ham-handed version of it. I mean, ultimately, I suspect they'll go along with Trump, and the crazy ones will nurse anger quietly, and it will manifest later in a sort of a giant open sore, because they'll not know where to go, because where are they going to go? Once Trump's gone, the Republicans, if they ever get back control of themselves, will not have this group in there. They don't want them. So we'll see. I feel badly for Roseanne Barr today.
What do you think it says more broadly about like the griftery nature of somebody like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, who really predicated their identities on serving this slop to their audiences, and now they are in these unique positions to be able to substantiate the very things that they were saying for years and years and years, and they've come up short. I mean, there was a clip of Kash Patel talking to somebody who works at the Blaze. I can't remember who it was, but this was in December of 2023, and he was saying that Epstein's black book was in the hands of the FBI director. That he's this goes right up to the FBI director. That's the person who has all the power here. Dude is the FBI director right now.
Well, that's their problem. They always do that. They're like, if only someone was in power to do this. Like Trump yesterday with, I would have done Doge differently. I was like, if you were in charge, and he wasn't in charge. Like this is one of their playbook things. I mean, they've got to be hurting because this is the gang that first of all, they couldn't shoot straight, essentially, but they also train these people to believe in this deep state mentality. And then when it gets out of control, it gets out of control. I mean, they seem like clods and charlatans. I mean, Dan Bongino's a charlatan, really, in so many ways. He's probably going to be arrested next week for that, but he is.
We could share a gulag somewhere.
Whatever. Whatever. Good luck, Dan. I think this is the problem, is they predicated their success, online success. Now, if they can spin up once they leave here, they'll come up with another nonsensical story, alligators in the toilets in Alcatraz. I don't know. They're just, you have to constantly be telling lies and coming up with new lies to leave behind the old lies. And so that's the problem. The thing is, this group, it's like soap opera. They'll take any lie and they'll move on to the next one. We'll see how much they split from Trump. I mean, they're just terrible people. So they will continue to be hypocritical. And calling them out is kind of like saying, oh, look, the sky is blue.
To watch the full interviews with Jamie Raskin and Kara Swisher, click the thumbnails right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also click the link on the screen to listen to the audio version of this episode, and of course to see more of my content, the subscribe button's on the screen as well.
When you've just tied the knot, dealing with paperwork is the last thing you want to worry about. Frustration sets in.
I'm sorry,
But fear
hold on.
not. Our online marriage certificate service makes it easy.
Thank you, Andra. Thank you. Make sure you go Epstein file. Go to the backup page, because if you work late nights, I'll be over there tonight. Dang it. Talking about, okay, hold on. I let everything go off trying to go into the other room. Lord. Hold on, cuz I don't want to forget where I'm at, baby, because I got so much tea. I got so much tea. That tea is hot. I told y'all okay, so now I need 30 likes. Let's hear this.
Let's bring in Sarah Matthews, former Trump White House Deputy Press Secretary, and Denver Riggleman, former Republican Congressman from Virginia, former senior advisor to the January 6th Select Committee. Welcome, both of you. Sarah, first to you, is we're going to start with the Trump post there defending Pam Bondi from MAGA attacks. As someone who literally spoke for the Trump campaign when he was a candidate and as president in his first term, how do you interpret this?
I think he's very frustrated with this news cycle. He does not want us to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein, but obviously his supporters have a right to be upset. This is something that he campaigned on. You had Attorney General Bondi saying that she was going to release the list, that the list was on her desk. She handed out these binders to influencers, and that said phase 1, implying there would be a phase 2, and they made a big show of it. And for them now to try to tell us that we need to stop talking about it, we need to be moving on. I feel like that is a disservice to his supporters, and it's not going to go away because they have a right to know and demand answers on this. But obviously from this post, you can tell that Trump is very frustrated. And if I had to make a prediction, I think that he is going to try to shift the news cycle this week by either saying something very controversial or doing something controversial, because he does not want us to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
So Denver, the president appears to be trying to redirect attention to every single boogeyman and conspiracy theorist that he has floated over the years. He also claims the Epstein files were written by the architects of the Russia election interference investigation. But Epstein was arrested in July 2019, died in custody 1 month later. To what extent can Trump distance himself from this?
And I think it's like. Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking me. I'm sorry. You're asking Sarah.
You're
asking me. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Sorry about that. No, I don't think he can. I think it's like conspiracy theorists gone wild, right? You start the conspiracy theory, then you try to stop the conspiracy theory, but the conspiracy theory is already metastasized throughout the United States. What I find interesting too is like, let's move on from Epstein. Nobody cares. You know who cares? The women who were abused and raped, and the families of those that were affected. I think that they care. Absolutely. I also think that when you're asking people to go away from it, it's like asking the firefighters not to put out the fire on the house that you set, right? And it looks like that's what he did, right? He's like, hey, firefighters, don't put out the fire that we set, talking about the Epstein files, the fact that Pam Bondi said she had the Epstein list or the client list, the fact we've been saying that Tom Hanks and Democrats and the deep state are all on the Epstein list. And I think that's the issue that you have, right? When you start a conspiracy theory, when you have an administration that lives by lies and conspiracies, it's very difficult to put out that fire because the credulous and the ignorant have grasped onto this in a way that we've never seen. I think it hurt. I think this hurts him long term. You can't get away from this because now he's going against QAnon. He's going against the QAnon conspiracy theories now. Now he's in real trouble.
There are also, Denver, several reports about a missing minute from the Epstein jail video that Bondi handed out. To what extent does this just add to the suspicions?
Alex, it's hard not to, you almost get to a point that they've lied so much in this administration and things that they've tried to do. You're talking about, the Epstein files or Comer and the Hunter Biden investigation. Everything is just this sort of bizarre alternate reality and fantasy world. And now you have conspiracy theorists fanning the flames. It was actually MAGA that's actually taking out this 1 minute of tape now and that it's been re-edited. And we don't really know what the issue is, right? It could be a glitch. It could be that there was fuzziness or static. We really don't know because I haven't seen the metadata. But I think we're getting to a point we need professionals to look at this because obviously the FBI and the DOJ do not have the professionals based on their sort of laughable leadership to do this in a way that's credible in any way. And now that after Bondi said she had the Epstein list on her desk, now she said it doesn't exist again, I think it just leads to this conspiracy theory madness. Listen, if you win on conspiracy theories, you can die on conspiracy theories. And sometimes crazy eats its own tail. And that's what you're seeing right now.
Sometimes crazy eats its own tail.
It was certainly evident at the Conservative Turning Point conference this weekend. Almost every speaker mentioned Epstein, with many expressing a sense of betrayal. Here's a snapshot of some of the bigger names. Listen up.
How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation?
What I'm getting at is at some point, we want answers at some point.
Yeah, answer the questions. That's it. Who went to Epstein Islands? Who specifically went on the plane? Who stayed for more than a night?
I don't think they're telling us the truth about Epstein. I think that guy was involved in something nefarious that implicates a whole lot of people.
I will not rest until we go full Jan 6 committee on the Jeffrey Epstein files and every single client that was associated with this thing has an FBI agent at their door on their phone going after them the same way they went after the Jan 6ers.
Look, Sarah, you've had extensive exposure to Trump's base. I'm going to take it a step further than what you said in your last answer. Do you think Trump is panicked by this reaction from his most loyal supporters?
I do think he's panicked. And right now, obviously, we see in his post that he's standing by Attorney General Bondi. But I do think that his supporters are going to expect heads to roll if they're not getting the answers that they need. And so I think right now he's obviously showing some loyalty to her. Who knows how long that will last, but he has been pretty loyal to his cabinet officials like Hegseth when he's come under scrutiny and faced controversies. But obviously he has to be panicking right now. I think him posting that Truth Social post and having the long laundry list of grievances over the years in it, he feels like this is something that is a pile-on effect and adding to those grievances. But the thing is that he campaigned on this. He said that he was going to release the list, and now his supporters are asking him to follow up and follow through.
Is this issue, Denver, important enough to the MAGA base to rip that coalition apart?
I think in some ways it can be, especially in specific districts that are heavily Republican. I think this is an incredible opportunity to identify the inconsistencies and the conspiratorial nature of the campaign. I think that's why you see Jamie coming out. And, I know Jamie, see other individuals asking for the list. This is the same thing that MAGA did, and they couldn't really, get through with it when they asked for all the materials, and they find out that nothing is actually true that they think is true based on who they've actually chosen to be in charge. So I think if the Democrats, independents, or those who still the last of the moderate Republicans left, which you might have a couple left on here, the last of them left, they need to actually go after this and never let it go. And I think if the media keeps asking the questions of where is it, you're either lying before or you're lying now. There is no other way to actually stage it. You were lying then or you're lying now. So when were you lying? Go. Yeah, and I think once that question is asked, they can never answer it. It's impossible to answer unless they release everything. I don't think they can do that either. I don't know if they have everything, and if they were lying beforehand, they don't have the list anyway. So it's going to be almost impossible to get around that if people continue to keep that sort of that bone in their teeth and keep shaking it. Right, it's going to be hard to get it away from.
So speaking of questions, here's how Trump responded to one a few days ago when reporters brought up the Epstein files. Listen to this.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy.
It is funny.
Is this an odd response, or is it more in line with what he says when he can't think of an answer on the spot?
I think the dismissive nature of this is kind of crazy, because obviously this is an issue that his supporters do care about. And so I think that him being so dismissive and trying to gaslight us that we need to move on from Jeffrey Epstein, Denver made this point. They are lying to us about something. They knowingly lied about having a list, or they are part of the cover-up now. So which is it? And I think that if he continues to be dismissive about it, it's only going to further enrage his supporters. And I think it's not going to go away anytime soon, this issue.
We ain't going nowhere.
Let me ask you also, Sarah, about Laura Loomer, of course, the far-right conspiracy theorist. Featured on the front page of the New York Times 3 days ago, by the way. As the person who blew this wide open, her post about Dan Bongino prompted news outlets to chase this story. She clearly has access and inside information. What do you know about her?
We know that she's someone who has the ear of the president. She gets on the phone with him. She's obviously been very influential in some of his hiring and firing decisions. And I know that Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, said that she was going to try to make sure that there was, no clown show within the West Wing. But obviously, someone like Laura Loomer does continue to have influence and access. And so having someone who is so far right and a conspiracy theorist, having the ear of the most powerful man in the world should be very concerning to Americans.
Okay, let's go over here.
The country of El Salvador has thrown the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself under the bus.
Not El Salvador.
And they didn't just do it while speaking to the press. They didn't do it, in their own internal documents. The government of El Salvador, Donald Trump, of course, is sending 300 migrants to the torture prison known as CICAD. They threw Donald Trump under the bus to the UN Human Rights Commissioner. Here's what happened. After the Trump administration first began their deportation flights, which of course included Kilmar Abrego Garcia, to El Salvador's torture prison, the court stepped in and said, nope, you can't do this, get these people back. And then, of course, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. They said, get Garcia back. And then the administration at every turn said, look, we got no control over it. They're in El Salvador. That's El Salvador's thing. We can't tell another country, another government to give us people back. We have no control over it. That's not our jurisdiction. That is what we heard every legal step of the way. That is what we heard as they broke the law, defying these court orders. But that is not what El Salvador told the UN Human Rights Commissioner.
You lying.
To recently released documents.
Everybody turning on him.
Actually told the UN Human Rights Commissioner that Donald Trump, the Trump administration, they actually have jurisdiction over all these people. They control every bit of it. You know, if they want them back, they got to do is ask. And, you know, they can get them back. You know, we're not keeping anybody here. Here is what El Salvador said. Word for word, this is from El Salvador's government to the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Just lie.
Here's what they said. The actions of the state of El Salvador have been limited to the implementation of a bilateral cooperation mechanism with another state through which it has facilitated the use of the Salvadoran prison infrastructure for the custody of persons detained within the scope of the justice system and law enforcement of that other state. In this context, the jurisdiction and legal responsibility for these persons lie exclusively with the competent foreign authorities by virtue of international agreements signed and in accordance with the principles of sovereignty and international cooperation in criminal matters.
Just lie.
Now, I don't know why the El Salvadoran government decided to refer to the Trump administration as competent, because we know that that is definitely one thing they are not. But either way, this is El Salvador saying they have jurisdiction, they have control over these people, they sent them here, they can take them back, they get to do whatever the hell they want, they tell us what to do with them, and we do it. We do it blindly, it's up to them though. Now the reason El Salvador would be saying this to the UN High Office of the Commissioner on Human Rights is because there's an investigation. And El Salvador doesn't want to be the group that gets popped for massive human rights violations that could cause other UN members to issue sanctions against them, possibly go in for some regime change, I don't know. But either way, El Salvador is scared. They're like, hey, whoa, you guys are like looking to punish somebody. It's totally not us. We didn't do this. These guys over here in the White House.
Oh, hold on, y'all. Am I buffing? Am I buffing? Can y'all hear? Am I buffing? Yep. Oh, you can hear? Okay.
Have the authority to do everything. We just took their 6 million and their 300 people, right? We had a deal. It's all written down, and in the written agreement, it explicitly says they control these people. So if you got an issue, you want to punish somebody, go to them. This, of course, contradicts everything the El Salvadoran government has said publicly, but more importantly, everything that the Trump administration has said publicly. Because now that stuff's getting real, right? They're in the find out part. They loved being in the F around.
Are you sure? Can y'all still hear?
Out part.
It sounds like I'm buffing.
For themselves, and El Salvador was the first to throw the other under the bus.
El Salvador.
Thanks for watching today, everybody, and don't.
El Salvador, where he was taking people, the concentration camp of choice, is throwing his ass up under the bus as well, y'all. It's about to crash. Hi, Anonymous. Okay, why is that device over here spinning? But y'all say I'm not. Can I get the likes up? I asked for. It keeps saying waiting. Okay, let me use another device. Hold on. I asked y'all to get the likes up. How long I been on here? An hour. All right, y'all know I'm gonna shut it down. Is this the one?
Bill Clinton.
Yep, this it. Now y'all, I need for y'all to put y'all ain't gonna believe how this one start. Am I spinning, y'all? If it's no, give me a 1. If it's yes, give me a 2. Am I buffing? Am I spinning around in circle? You got me going in circle. Boom, 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 boom. I guess it's just me on. If y'all wonder why I keep, yeah, because it's giving me not responsive. Y'all ready for this? Let me make sure the volume up over here. Now listen to Trump.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island. Bill Clinton. Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion.
Who is a nice guy? Clinton. He got a lot of trouble. What? So did he know something then? He said Bill Clinton got a lot of questions that he gonna need to answer about the Epstein Island. Can y'all believe that? So you know about it. You know some people who been on that island. So you call yourself trying to throw somebody under the bus. Can you believe that? Did y'all hear that with y'all good ear? Give my likes up. I need 20 likes. Did y'all hear him? Huh? Was you trying to so that means you know everything about that list. You know everything about the human, the minor trafficking. You know everything about it. You tried to expose Bill Clinton. Baby, you lying to me.
Bill Clinton. Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
How in the hell would you know that? Doo-doo Donald. Doo-doo dirty diaper Donald. How in the heck would you know that? Hello? Hello? Doo-doo diaper. How do you know that, sir? Huh? He can't expose no. Yeah, he talk too much. That's what happens when you troll, and your trolling, your words come back to haunt you. Yes, indeed. Let's go. Let's hear this one more time.
Clinton. Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. You still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. Such a great dancer.
You're 14 years old. Yeah, you knew very well my age. I don't think you cared.
And who helped him build this international trafficking?
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Bill Clinton. Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. You still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. Such a great dancer.
You're 14 years old. Yeah, you knew very well my age. I don't think you cared.
And who helped him build this international trafficking?
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Who killed Jeffrey Epstein?
This doesn't look right. It doesn't look like a suicide.
200 victims. That there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret.
I believe that he was murdered.
Accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein discovered dead today in his jail cell. The cause, an apparent.
This is everything. The only solace for me is that when a group of people.
Look at you. You're doing everything you can to get your blood pressure in check. And now you have super beats
hit the like button.
Human on.
When a group of people who have experienced trauma of this kind come together united against a common enemy. There's a very special bond between us all.
No list, no names, just a memo, a video, and a final statement that left more silence than answers. After years of whispers, lawsuits, and one infamous death in a locked federal cell, the Department of Justice has finally spoken. But what they said and didn't say has only deepened the mystery. If one man built an entire network of abuse, how did it end with just him? Before we get to what the DOJ concluded, let's go back to how it started, because the story underneath it isn't what you think.
Oh my gosh, I was 14 years old. Like, what the hell do you know when you're that young?
In 2005, police in Palm Beach, Florida, opened an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein after a 14-year-old girl said she had been abused inside his waterfront mansion.
But at the same time, I was scared too because I didn't know if he would get angry, or so I kind of just followed. I would have just my underwear on because that's how he liked it. So, and I would just get massages back, and then he would potentially later on turn over and he would also like when I would play with his nipples.
Oh, that Diddy stuff. They go
and then he would.
They go Diddy. They go Diddy. Did y'all hear Diddy? He also liked for you to play with his nipples. Wow. I need 10 likes, y'all. Come on. We can do it. Let's go.
And I would just get massages back, and then he would potentially later on turn over and he would also like when I would play with his nipples. He used to get turned on by that, and then he would finish himself off, and then that would be the end of it. And he would still give me the 300, you know, and normally I would either get it from the secretary, would leave it in a drawer in the massage room.
How often do you think
it was
you were there?
Yeah, like once a week, twice a week, my freshman year.
Did you ever tell him your age?
I told the recruiter, I've mentioned it in front of him, yes.
You're 14 years old.
Yeah, he knew very well my age. He knew exactly, you know, who he was hanging out with, you know. I don't think he cared.
It didn't take long for investigators to uncover more victims. Dozens of teenage girls, some as young as 13, said Epstein paid them for massages that quickly turned into something else. Some were told to recruit other girls. The pattern was clear. So was the scale. Epstein, at the time, was a wealthy financier with a private jet, homes in Manhattan and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and ties to celebrities, royalty, and powerful men in business and politics. Police compiled a strong case and referred to it to the FBI, but in 2008, a secret plea deal changed everything. Federal prosecutors allowed Epstein to plead guilty to 2 minor state charges, soliciting and procuring. He served just 13 months in a county jail, mostly on work release. The deal,
y'all see the similarities?
Alexander Acosta,
y'all see the similarities?
To unnamed co-conspirators.
What is the value of a secured guilty plea with registration versus rolling the dice? Is a value to a sure guilty plea. Because letting him walk, letting what the state attorney was ready to do go forward would have been absolutely awful.
For the victims, there was no trial, no testimony, no public reckoning. The deal wasn't just lenient, it was hidden from the girls it affected. And for the next 10 years, Epstein continued to move freely in elite circles. The question is, why? Behind closed doors, Epstein wasn't working alone. Ghislaine Maxwell, British socialite, Oxford educated, and the daughter of media mogul Robert Maxwell, was more than just a companion. She was central to his operation. Victims later described how Maxwell would befriend them, groom them, and usher them into Epstein's home. She was often present. Sometimes she participated.
The first time she brought up the name Jeffrey Epstein, how did she describe him to you?
He was just a great guy. It's just saying, like, you know, he's helped me. I've struggled. Like, she was similar to me.
Did she say he could help you with your career?
That was a big part of it.
And when you think of her now, you used the phrase, you said the recruiter. You felt like she was looking for someone for him.
100%, yeah.
By the time the Miami Herald published its bombshell expose in 2018, public attention exploded. The story detailed not only Epstein's crimes, but also the network of enablers and the legal machinery that protected him. Maxwell was named in lawsuits, so were others. Epstein's world was unraveling, and suddenly the names in his contact book, presidents, princes, billionaires, began drawing scrutiny. Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump.
The NBC archives of the Mar-a-Lago party shows Trump giving Epstein his personal attention. The footage, shot in November of 1992, before Trump opened the resort as a club, shows the future president surrounded by cheerleaders for the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins, capturing Trump's fun-loving bachelor lifestyle.
Wow, who knew he was such a great dancer?
They all had past associations with Epstein. All denied any knowledge of wrongdoing. But the bigger question was still unanswered. Was Epstein the center of something larger, or just the only one who got caught? That question would only grow louder after his arrest, and even louder after what happened in a New York City jail cell. On July 6, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey. He had just returned from Paris on his private jet. This time, the charges were far more serious. Trafficking and conspiracy to commit of underage girls. The indictment detailed a pattern of abuse that stretched from 2002 to 2005 and involved dozens of minors. Epstein paid girls as young as 14 in his homes in Manhattan and Palm Beach. He also encouraged them to recruit others, creating what prosecutors called abuse pyramid scheme. Within days, federal agents raided Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. Inside, they found hundreds, possibly thousands of images of nude and partially clothed girls. Some appeared to be minors. Hidden compartments reportedly contained CDs labeled with names and descriptions. Investigators also seized cash, diamonds, and a fake passport listing, a Saudi Arabia residence. Epstein pleaded not guilty and was held without bail. Prosecutors argued he posed a flight risk. They noted his access to private aircraft and his history of witness intimidation. A judge agreed. But over a month later, on August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. The official cause?
Sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein discovered dead today in his jail cell. The cause, an apparent. Now the Department of Justice and the FBI will investigate.
The circumstances surrounding his death sparked immediate suspicion. Epstein had reportedly attempted weeks earlier and had been placed on watch only to be removed 6 days later. On the night of his death, both correctional officers assigned to his unit failed to check on him for several hours. They later admitted to falsifying logs. Even more concerning, the surveillance cameras outside Epstein's cells were either malfunctioning or recorded unusable footage. No clear visual record existed of what happened that night. Federal authorities launched multiple investigations. But even early on, the inconsistencies gave way to doubt. Public reaction was swift and cynical. Many simply didn't believe that one of the most high-profile federal inmates in the country, a man with ties to some of the world's most powerful figures,
Let me tell you about my experience with the 5-day juice cleanse. As someone who's always on the go, I was a bit skeptical about trying a cleanse that didn't involve solid food. But honestly, it's exceeded all of my expectations. I just feel so good. You can enjoy 4 really, really delicious juices a day, plus 1 regular meal. The flavors of the juices are so good. These are some examples. This is the sweet greens, blood orange, then the detox greens, which has pineapple, celery, cucumber, green kale, spinach, and dandelion. And in the mornings, you'll usually get something a little bit more solid. This is homemade cashew milk with cashews, agave, pure vanilla extract, cinnamon, and water. I also have this really good cold brew, which is great if you need that caffeine kick. But it's not just about taste, it's about how I feel. I feel lighter, more energized, and ready to take on the world. It's like hitting a reset button for my mind and my body. Treat yourself to this 5-day juice cleanse. Cheers to a happier and healthier you.
Get the lights up.
Why is Amazon paying
I am not rushing back in here.
a day? Because I use
get the lights
Amazon
up.
AI.
A man with ties to some of the world's most powerful figures could die at the beach. He also encouraged them to recruit others, creating what prosecutors called abuse pyramid
I heard
scheme.
something say
Within
falsified
days, federal
documents.
agents raided Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. Inside, they found hundreds, possibly thousands of images of nude and partially clothed girls. Some appeared to be minors. Hidden compartments reportedly contained CDs labeled with names and descriptions. Investigators also seized cash, diamonds, and a fake passport listing a Saudi Arabia residence. Epstein pleaded not guilty and was held
Saudi
on bail.
Arabia.
Prosecutors argued
Tea
he posed
sippers. Y'all remember last week, I think, we did on Diddy and that young lady who said that a prince, Sylvia, you still here? She said she met that prince and that he was from, looked like he was from Saudi. It was a couple of them. They went to the Diddy house. Y'all remember that? In Miami? Yup. To Saudi. Saudi. Okay. Stay woke, y'all.
the flight risk. They noted his access to private aircraft and his history of witness intimidation. A judge agreed. But over a month later, on August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. The official cause?
Sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein discovered dead today in his jail cell. The cause, an apparent. Now the Department of Justice and the FBI will investigate.
The circumstances surrounding his death sparked immediate suspicion. Epstein had reportedly attempted weeks earlier and had been placed on watch only to be removed 6 days later. On the night of his death, both correctional officers assigned to his unit failed to check on him for several hours. They later admitted to falsifying logs. Even more concerning, the surveillance cameras outside Epstein's cells were either malfunctioning or recorded unusable footage. No clear visual record existed of what happened that night. Federal authorities launched multiple investigations. But even early on, the inconsistencies gave way to doubt. Public reaction was swift and cynical. Many simply didn't believe that one of the most high-profile federal inmates in the country, a man with ties to some of the world's most powerful figures, could die in federal custody without something being wrong. Epstein didn't kill himself, became a viral phase, meme, and slogan. It was printed on shirts, shouted at political rallies, and broadcast in interviews. And honestly, that's hard to ignore and disagree with.
Conservative down here with our state senator, Sonny Borelli. He's also the majority whip. And Sonny, what are you going to say tonight? Epstein did not kill himself. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Public distrust deepened after further details emerged. Officers Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, the two guards on duty, were found to have browsed the internet, read sports articles, and fallen asleep during their shift. In 2021, they entered a deferred prosecution agreement, admitting their failure to perform mandatory checks. In return, they avoided jail time. The jail's reputation added to the suspicion. The Metropolitan Correctional Center, already known for poor conditions and understaffing, was facing serious scrutiny even before Epstein's arrival. After his death, it was temporarily closed in 2021 due to poor infrastructure and ongoing concerns. Critics also pointed to the up-and-coming bail hearing, scheduled just days after his death. Epstein's legal team had been preparing a second attempt at securing his release, offering a $100 million bond, armed guards in home confinement. His brother, Mark Epstein, raised questions about the time.
So Diddy didn't set the record.
Into reporters, he
I need 3 more lights.
Unusual decision to remove Epstein from suicide watch so quickly, and noted the family's intention to support bail. Mark arranged for re-owned forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden to observe the autopsy.
You say that the answer to whether or not he killed himself could be in his eyes. Explain that.
That helps. That is, with when the loop comes up under the windpipe, under the mandible, there usually is not any kind of hemorrhages in the eye. With homicidal strangulation, because of the increased pressure, there are hemorrhages in the eye.
And when you examined the body, there were burst capillaries.
There were burst capillaries in the eyes called petechiae, and that's not conclusive, but that's greater evidence of homicide than...
Dr. Baden later told media outlets that some of Epstein's injuries, including broken bones in the neck, were more consistent with homicide, though the official ruling by the New York City medical examiner remained unchanged. More details emerged over time. No photos were taken of Epstein's body in the position it was found. His body was removed from the cell before a thorough forensic investigation. In the sheet he allegedly used was thin, torn from a standard issue prison bed. Amid all of this, another source of public frustration remained. The lack of arrest beyond Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell had been taken into custody in July 2020 at a remote New Hampshire property. She was later convicted in December 2021 on 5 counts, including and conspiracy.
Do you feel safe in jail? Do you feel safe because there is threats on your life? So do you feel safe?
Yes, I feel safe. I don't have any safety issues.
Because as you told me, jails are sometimes dangerous, and Jeffrey Epstein died in jail. Do you believe that he committed suicide? Because many don't.
No, he didn't. I don't believe he did. I believe that he was murdered.
But the core question persisted. If Epstein had recruited and abused hundreds of underage girls and Maxwell had helped them, who were the clients? By 2020, flight logs from Epstein's private jet, nicknamed the Loletta Express, had become public. Names ranged from entertainers and business executives to global political leaders. None were charged. Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's most vocal accusers, named Prince Andrew in civil court filings.
Asked me to dance. He is the most hideous dancer I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was horrible, and this guy was sweating all over me. Like, his sweat was like, it was raining basically everywhere, and I was just like, what? Grossed out from it. But I knew I had to keep him happy because that's what Jeffrey and Ghislaine would expect from me. People on the inside are going to keep coming up with these ridiculous excuses, like his arm was elongated, or the photo was doctored, or he came to New York to break up with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, come on. I'm calling BS on this because that's what it is. He knows what happened. I know what happened. And there's only one of us telling the truth, and I know that's me. I implore the people in the UK.
In 2022, the case was settled for an undisclosed amount, with the prince admitting no wrongdoings but stepping back from royal duties. The BBC interview he gave in 2019.
So there was a settlement with the prince, just like Cassie.
I'm calling BS on this because that's what it is. He knows what happened. I know what happened. And there's only one of us telling the truth, and I know that's me. I implore the people in the UK.
In 2022, the case was settled for an undisclosed amount, with the prince admitting no wrongdoings but stepping back from royal duties. The BBC interview he gave in 2019 meant to defend himself only worsened public perception. Meanwhile, social media and independent platforms continued filling the vacuum. With mainstream investigations being slow, people turned to internet forums and podcasts. Theories multiplied, and the narrative of a powerful man silenced before he could testify became dominant in popular opinion. The federal government, in contrast, remained quiet. No further arrests, no new names, and despite growing calls to release Epstein's full contact book and video evidence, very little new information came out until 2025, this year, when the Department of Justice decided to respond, but not in the way most expected. In July 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice released what it framed as a final update on the Epstein case.
With our law and justice lead and Elon Musk's favorite story, a new Justice Department memo reveals that the Justice Department has no evidence that convicted Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful people or kept a client list or was murdered in prison.
The memo was paired with over 11 hours of surveillance footage from the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, the facility where Epstein died in 2019.
Where Diddy at?
The DOJ summary declared there was no credible evidence of a wider conspiracy, no secret blackmail operation, no so-called quote-unquote client list. The memo read in part, "We did not uncover evidence that could predicate on investigation against uncharged third parties." It also stated that there was no evidence that Epstein blackmailed any individuals, and no indication that any prominent public figures were involved in illegal activity. The video footage released alongside the memo showed the hallways outside Epstein's cell block on the night of his death. According to the DOJ and FBI, the footage confirmed that no one entered or exited the special housing unit during the critical window. They concluded Epstein had acted alone.
But what about the last minute and a half?
That conclusion was met with immediate skepticism. For many, the DOJ statements raised more concerns than they resolved. The memo simultaneously confirmed that Epstein had harmed over 1,000 victims, a staggering number, but it claimed that only he and Ghislaine Maxwell could be held criminally responsible. The surveillance footage, while technically confirming no unauthorized access to Epstein's tier, did not show the inside of his cell. The angle of the footage, placement of the cameras, and the absence of guards still left room for speculation. The guards involved, Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, never gave public testimony under oath. Further complicating the situation, the DOJ memo acknowledged that investigators had reviewed over 300 gigabytes of digital material. This included more than 10,000 downloaded images and videos, many involving minors or apparent minors. But the department cited court orders and privacy protections as reasons for withholding much of the content from the public. Attorney General Pam Bondi and other officials noted the sheer scale of the material made it difficult to process and confirmed the identities of third parties involved. But victims' advocates argued that the lack of transparency undermined the pursuit of justice. While the DOJ emphasized the need to protect victims' privacy, it also appeared to signal an end to any broader accountability efforts. The memo concluded, no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. The DOJ's final word has done little to close the case in the public eye. Instead, it highlighted the glaring contradictions in the official narrative. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of but the DOJ now claims there were no identified recipients of that Virginia Giuffre named Prince Andrew in sworn statements. He settled out of court in 2022, but was never criminally charged. Flight logs revealed a roster of elite names, but association was not considered evidence of wrongdoing. Meanwhile, the DOJ says it found no blackmail tapes, no list of clients, and no credible evidence of extortion. But Maxwell's trial confirmed that girls were recruited for with wealthy men. If Epstein had over 1,000 victims and Maxwell helped him recruit them, the logical question remains, to whom? The memo was meant to offer closure. Instead, it left many wondering whether the full truth had been buried, not just with Epstein, but behind layers of institutional reluctance. With that, the case was declared closed. But for many, it never really opened. If this really is the end, it's a quiet one. Too quiet. No names, no closure. Just a memo, a few tapes, and a world still asking who else was involved and why weren't they ever named. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more Scary Hour.
You said can't do anything when Mossad is involved. Who is Mossad? Oh, I don't know. So, hey, y'all remember, I have to leave that right here. Y'all remember when they were saying Diddy was celebrated when he went back into his jail cell? Well, one of the old racketeering, old mobsters said he don't believe that. He don't believe it. Not for what he was locked up for. I'm gonna find it. I have it. And then here I'm seeing Sammy the Bull. He was on Vlad. Did y'all see that? I'm gonna get back to the other. But he made a bet with Vlad. Y'all, let's listen. Girl, cut it up.
He'll get 10 and 10. He'll get 20 years.
Look, I've been very vocal about 20 years.
I think he'll get the 2 10s running wild. So, yes, he'll get 10 and 10. He'll get 20 years.
Look, I've been very vocal about this case. I was just on Piers Morgan. Me and Tony Busby were yelling at each other over this.
What do you think he's going to get?
I think, based on what he was convicted of, which is prostitution, interstate prostitution, which is a very small charge. Flying in a hooker, and I've interviewed 3 of the male escorts. All of them said they didn't feel like they were trafficked. All of them were totally fine with what they did.
And they're not going to admit that.
Like $3,000 to have sex with a beautiful woman. Mm-hmm. Not a bad job.
Not a bad job.
At the end of the day, when you talk about sex trafficking, prostitution, I feel like the essence of the law
is how you
feel. Taking young girls, forcing them into motel rooms to turn tricks, have sex with a bunch of guys, and the pimp takes all the money. And then, taking them to a different state and abusing them and threatening them and so forth. A man that likes to have freaky sex and have another man have sex with his girlfriend in front of him, I don't really feel as a...
Now, Blaz, he could be so dumb. Did we just hear the same type of setup with Epstein and what he got found guilty of while he was sitting in that jail? He got found guilty of the minor. Same thing with Diddy. Same setup on Weinstein's retrial. Same setup. The female got the bulk of it. The madam got the bulk of it. So why is he acting brand new? As if, well, that's not his vision on what trafficking is. It don't matter what you think it is. Let's go.
Time at the end of the day. I feel this is just whatever. This is a weird sex thing. It's not my thing, but if someone wants to do it, and not only did I talk to the male prostitutes, but I talked about how the women were during these sessions, and all 3 of them said Cassie and Daphne Joy were all really into it.
But
you picked the guy themselves.
You definitely gonna believe the guy.
Contacted the guy themselves.
They called back days later, and they
called back
again. Yeah,
they paid them themselves every single time.
Right,
all
Sylvia.
3 guys said that the girls would give them the money, not Diddy.
Right.
So if you talk about prostitution charges, Cassie and Daphne should have been charged.
All right.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not charged, but
they were given immunity.
Right.
To testify against Diddy.
Yes.
So in these cases, I felt like these were all willing participants. So to charge, first I felt like time served is more than enough time. He spent a year in jail. He's lost hundreds of millions of dollars. He's publicly embarrassed for the rest of his life. To me, I think that was fair.
So,
at the end of the day,
time served? You want time served?
I think time served is fair.
I love it. I say 20 years. You say time served. Somewhere in the middle, someone wins. It's less than 10 or 11,
20.
You win. And if it's over 10, I win. $500 bet. Put it on.
$500 bet?
$500.
Okay, so what? Okay, so what's the breaking point?
10.
10.
10. Anything 10 and over, I win. Under 10, you win.
You got it.
My man.
I'll make that bet.
My man.
I make that bet.
It's
$500.
It's official. 500.
There we go. So 9.5 years, I win.
Yes.
But 10 years, you win.
Well, after he done said time served.
I'll give you that.
That's good.
I'll give you that.
A real racketeer.
I wonder if we can get indicted now. Forgive me.
Maybe. Now we're charged.
A real racketeer. And hold on, it's another one. An old one who can barely talk. Before I get back over there, please tell me I still have it where I can find it. He said he does not believe that Diddy got a standing ovation when he returned. He says that them folk in jail, I'm gonna let him tell it. Hold on, let me get back to it. Then I'll get back over there. Oh, there you go, right here.
So right when I thought Mom would start taking it easy with her osteoporosis, boom, we moved to this cool new place in this.
Good morning, everybody. It's Sunday morning. I'm going to talk to you about what life in prison is like for Diddy. Before I do, please subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment. I love the comments, even those bad ones, folks. I could take it, okay? I'm a real man. Folks, I'm tired of listening Nancy Grace, Megan Kelly, and all the others, Piers Morgan, all of them saying that Diddy was celebrated when he got back to prison because of the not guilty verdicts. Yes, folks, it's a big deal when somebody beats the government, which is a rarity. But let me tell you who was celebrating, okay? Now, first of all, you got to remember, the Intercontinental Hotel, Diddy was seen beating the hell out of Cassie. Every inmate in prison has seen that. Yeah, they got television.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got access to that. Okay? They all seen it. You know what?
Somebody gonna want to fade.
Guys don't like woman beaters. Another thing, don't forget. Diddy has a reputation of being an informant. Now, obviously, he didn't inform on himself. We don't know who he informed on. I could take a speculation because I got some very dear friends who are in prison that I think Diddy might have had something to do with. Okay? But let me tell you, who was celebrating? Diddy, when you walk in NDC and building and you know, don't forget, I spent 30 months there. When you walk in, the doors of that unit that he's in, on the 4th floor of, they call it the old building, okay? You got the cell, you got your bunks and lockers over here on the right-hand side. Over here on the left are the tables where you sit down, eat. Everybody has a table. The Italians have their table, the Jamaicans, cartel have their tables, okay? The blacks have their table, and so forth. Believe it or not, prison is a pretty segregated place, but everybody commingles. But there will always be a table in NBC where the rats are.
Uh-oh.
Okay? And they sit together. And more than likely, they're born-again Christians. Now, I'm not against anybody's religion. I want you to know that there. But if you look, you will see most of the informants out of prison become born-again Christian. There's somebody that's very major on YouTube. I'm not going to mention his name, but you all know who it is. this. You know, folks, so the people that were applauding him were his people. MS-13 controls Brooklyn, MDC, nowadays. They don't like informants, and they don't like woman beaters. The Italians don't like it, and the other groups don't like it.
So he'll target.
Okay? So it wasn't everybody in the prison that was celebrating him. All right, get that right. Okay, I've been there. I know how it is. Okay. Damn, I spent 30 freaking months there. 30. That's a long time.
Why they just don't say the years?
Diddy's only been there 10. Diddy, you got time going. You got a lot of time left over there.
No, he needs to go to the prison. Get out the county. But they say that county is worse.
I got along with everybody in prison. I was respected because I wasn't a rat. There's nothing out there. My paperwork.
So let's be clear. The mobsters, the mafia, they still looking at Sean P. Diddy Cohn as an informant. Gene Deal says that Diddy was a known informant. His ex-boyfriend Barros, whatever, it ain't Chris, I don't remember his first name. He said that Diddy was an informant. So the people who know he is an informant was not celebrating him coming back in. The people who, hi Courtney, the people who are the no women beaters, no messing with kids and with women out. No, they don't give a damn. So let's be clear. Okay, so the other mobster, he's saying Diddy getting some time. Okay, let's keep listening before I go back.
Paperwork. I got my paperwork at the end of my book. Yeah. All right? If you got my book, you can look in the back and see my paperwork. Okay? So I got nothing to hide, folks. But I can tell you one thing. If Diddy ever gets moved to a real prison, he's going to think he was in heaven. Because an NDC is so dilapidated, it's horrible, folks. It's horrible. I mean, you got no idea how bad it is.
That's why he was saying.
It's summertime, they got the air conditioning.
That's why he was saying that he know he gonna have to spend some time. They ready for he ready to be moved. He ready to go to prison. When Diddy goes to prison, he will be in protective custody. So, cause I kind of remember saying he probably got some threats on him. Somebody probably done, toilet. He probably been sending him a kite. Diddy. Puff, puff, puff. Meet me in the yard. Hi, Venus. We gotta fight this motherfucker out. You beat the shit out that woman. You gonna have to fight for your ass. I like feet.
And I guarantee you it's probably 50 degrees in there to keep it so cold. The lights are on all night in that unit that he's in. Okay?
I wonder how close is it to...
He got transferred from that there.
Where Epstein was.
What they call the new building, which is cells. Okay? I had a cell on my window, which was this big.
So he in the old unit. Oh wow, they handling him rough, ain't they?
I had a beautiful view from prison. So,
he ain't special. He just a damn rapper. Is R. Kelly in protective custody? I mean, I was saying, what the hell is going on between them sheets in my home? I mean, how he getting all these special privileges? He just a rapper. What makes him so special? Yeah, how that happen?
I was at the bottom bunk, of course, but when they bring in a new bunkie, I would give them instructions of how to clean. What you do when you go to the bathroom, you got one commode in the cell, you know, okay? You don't watch another man while you go in the bathroom. If you're in your bunkie, just roll over to the other side, okay? All right, those are the conditions you gotta live in.
You gotta smell somebody else's shit real close and personal.
To be my bunkie. After I get an instruction, I said, look,
okay. So he's saying he ain't being celebrated. So a while ago, we heard that Trump was about to start another situation, you know, to be a deflector, right? Girl, back that up. Hold on, I got it too close. Deflection, here it is right here. Now he tired of Putin. Going to Texas wasn't enough for him. The reporters in Texas was tagging him, so he went off on the reporters. He mad, he falling apart, he melting down, he can't control his bowels and shit. You know, his pet. Oh Lord, can you imagine? Throw them away. And you are not putting that shit in my washer and dryer. Fuck that. Throw them away. We'll buy some more. So now he finna start up with Putin. Putin ready. Cause again, I say, his last office, he had a deal with Putin like he tried to make with Israel. N0RS. And he didn't get a chance to fulfill his obligations because Putin helped him get elected. Remember, they was doing all that hacking. And then this time it was Elon, and he done flipped the script on Elon. But funny thing about it, you know everything about Epstein, and he wasn't supposed to be your friend. You say you don't know him, you ain't never liked him. But you knew enough when you was trying to be elected before to bring up Bill Clinton and him being on Epstein Island. You knew then and you know now because you was there too. You saw him. Y'all was messing with them kids and shit together. Let's go. Oh, I'm gonna take it out because they bombing. It's hold on, the volume down, y'all. Hold on.
Sign of deteriorating relations between. On Wednesday night, Russia launched its largest drone attack on Ukraine since the beginning of the war, bombarding the country with more than 700 drones and a dozen missiles. That attack came a day after Trump said he was very unhappy with Putin during a cabinet meeting. It is just the latest sign of deteriorating relations between the two leaders as Trump is outwardly losing patience with Putin. Trump is now considering additional sanctions on Moscow and has promised to make a major statement on Russia. Joining me now is Alexander Gabuyev, director of the Carnegie Russia-Eurasia Center.
You finna start another.
Alexander, welcome.
You better leave Putin alone.
This extraordinary drone attack, it seems to be coming at a time when Trump is urging restraint and caution. Is Putin openly defying Trump?
I think the impression in the Kremlin is that you need to stay on the good side of President Trump, massage his ego, praise him, and tell how great he is, how grateful you as Russia are for his attempts to end this conflict on terms acceptable to Russia, and also how much this war is Biden's fault.
Listen, ain't nobody finna eat your ass and you got the runs. You crazy.
American side, but no bite. Mr. Trump has not demonstrated ability or will to push Russia into peace negotiations and arrive to terms of peace acceptable to both the United States and Ukraine. With that, Mr. Putin believes that he can have his way and he can push and pursue his war aims and arrive at peace on his conditions, which means subjugation of Ukraine, breaking the line that connects Ukraine's self-defense effort with the Western military intelligence machine and defense industrial complex, and leaving rump state of Ukraine on trajectory of potential failure and definitely at the Kremlin's mercy going forward.
So his war goals, it seems to me, are to have
This is going to be his distraction, y'all.
It's a rump state, and because it is permanently under the threat of Russian invasion, it's going to be a basket case, right? Nobody will invest in a country where they worry about a Russian invasion. That's his goal.
I absolutely agree with you. That's his goal. And for that, cutting this lifeline that connects Ukrainian self-defense effort, its army, its intelligence machine, its defense production to the West, where a lot of critical intelligence that helps Ukrainians to protect their skies and their cities and inflict a lot of damage on the Russian occupiers is coming from the US and from the West, where a lot of material that Ukraine needs, artillery shells, drones, air defense systems, come from the West, particularly from the United States. So that needs to be cut. And that's exactly the point that Trump and his team were not ready to concede to Vladimir Putin. So he wants to get this from the battlefield. And for now, his generals are telling him that the war is trending into positive direction for the Russians, that despite the colossal losses that Ukrainians were able to inflict on the Russian invaders, in the war of attrition, the bigger party, the Russians, will have an advantage over Ukraine, and that probably Ukrainian self-defense effort will run its course by beginning of this September or fall, and that's where the Russians really want to push hard on the battlefield.
It feels to me like what Putin worries about is military pressure from the West, military arms to Ukraine, for him a military defeat on the battlefield. He's not that worried about additional sanctions, because the main sanction would be a sanction on Russian oil, and if anything were done on that front, oil would go to $150, $200 a barrel. The Western economies will go into recession. He knows that. So the thing he worries about is military aid, and Trump is simply not providing that, which means he's in a sweet spot right now.
I agree with you. I don't think that the Russians believe that the economic pressure toolkit is full of new shining objects that can really deliver a desirable effect on Russia. And indeed, his primary concern is the battlefield, where the West is unlikely to provide Ukraine with tools to reconquer all of the occupied territories, including Crimea. But the West is definitely able to help Ukraine to stay their ground, create a wall and a boundary that will really lead the Russians to realization that it's not worth it, that they will be losing tens of thousands of troops but will not gain ground. So this is possible, like a genuine stalemate on Ukrainian terms, but the West needs to really roll up the sleeves and do a lot of heavy lifting, particularly with the US. And Putin's hope is that Trump is just absolutely not fit for this purpose.
Alexander Gabuyev, sobering thoughts, but very intelligent ones. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ferdy.
Where my likes at? Now, where we started yesterday, where we end yesterday is where I'm finna go now. So get my likes up, y'all. Get my likes up. Where my likes at? Where my likes at? I have no idea why that's blinking.
This shit in 3D.
I have no idea why it's blinking, y'all. Hold on. Yeah, I was trying to blame somebody else. Y'all, listen, it's some pictures out there with Trump and them little girls on Epstein Island. Y'all see that? This is some of the reason why he's shitting on himself. But hold on, let me get back to where I promised yesterday. Hold on. Y'all ready?
Looking to hire medical staff, tech support, kitchen help, freight managers.
I was hoping Marcus would come, and he was the one of the ones that was
as good as my.
Okay, y'all ready? I'm gonna back it up a little bit.
You know, I changed the conversation, and finally I'm like, how do we delay some more? Finally, I couldn't deal with this conversation anymore. I was done with this conversation. I said, you know what? I said, you guys have proven to me pen and paper, and
okay, so let me for the ones of y'all who wasn't with us last night when we were, oh my God, it was just, oh, you talking, Sylvia, was that for me about where we was going? I told y'all I was gonna bring it back tonight. So listen, this was the undercover agent who went into Colombia to tackle, hi Courtney, to tackle the minor human trafficking. Okay, that's all. I'm gonna let him talk. Let's go.
And I'm just delay. How do we delay until the agent? And we're thinking, okay, what do we do here? And you could hear some of the children crying inside. They were so scared of coming out. And a few minutes later, they come back out and they had 4 0-kilometer, brand new, just little kids. They had 11-year-old little boy that was taken from Haiti. They gave him some white powder to make it so that he wouldn't cry, that, you know, while he was being in that situation. There was 3 other girls. One of the little girls.
Yeah, I know we were a bit further. I'm backing it up for the people who wasn't here.
Right. And she had this little kitty cat face on her shirt. And she had these long red braids on the side. And Matt, I'm sitting down. I'm as tall as we are right now, sitting down. This little girl standing up wasn't much taller than I was sitting down. So imagine, you know, you're sitting down, you're eye level with this child. And there was tear stains in her makeup face. She had been in there. She was so scared of coming out to meet me. And everything in me wanted to say, no, you're going to be fine. It's not me. I'm not who you think. You're going to see your parents again. I couldn't say that. The traffickers are still there. The agents still hadn't showed up. And we have no idea why nobody had come to do this thing yet. And we're like, how do we deal with this? And I said, you know what? I said, here's the thing. This is amazing. I'm so impressed with the inventory that you brought.
Inventory, that's what they call it.
If I start snorting the cocaine, if we start, getting time with these kids, I'm gonna enjoy myself, but I'm gonna be pretty effed up for the next little while. You've just proven
I know, it was horrible.
That you could do what you said you could do.
But I need for the tea sippers to understand why we couldn't understand why not we got it, but a lot of people could not process some of the things that they was hearing about the trafficking and why the females were doing this, and why it just didn't make sense. He ain't getting paid, but he ain't no pimp, or just all these excuses for a trafficker. He mimicked everything Epstein did. And his protectors, the protectors, the gatekeepers, who they are not changing their playbook either. Because 2 weeks before Diddy, Weinstein retrial and new charges went the same exact way with a conflict with a juror. Do the research. Yeah. So the protectors of this whole human traffic, underground, Illuminati, Boule, whatever, something they gotta be hit with something. The prostitution, transportation. Everybody saying, "Oh, that ain't nothing." Yeah, he should. Yeah. Same thing. It's Epstein. So is that why Diddy trying to get out for somebody to come get his ass while he up in that same state or county jail? He's still reachable, touchable. Yeah.
Instead, right now, why don't we get this deal done? Somebody bring me a pen. Somebody bring me a notebook. We'll take these kids back inside, and we're going to negotiate this. Now, back up 2 minutes before. I'm sitting there face to face with this child. I made a commitment at that moment to myself, to God, to that child, that I would dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. I couldn't imagine anything worse than what I was seeing in front of me at that time. And so I said, I believe, at this time, I'm nothing special. I'm no Navy SEAL. I'm no Green Beret. This is literally my second now undercover mission. But I believe that it was truly divine intervention that I was there at that time. The only reason why that's so important is because I had just negotiated hundreds of business deals over the last 10 years before that. And so doing a business deal was secondhand. So I said, you know what, bring pen and paper. We're going to send the kids back inside.
Yes, it sure will.
Let's plan this deal right now. And so they bring out a pen and paper.
It would set it on fire.
I'm just delay. How do we delay until the agents actually get here? Because we can't have that happen.
Well, where are these guys? Where are they?
We found out later that there was a lady that was part of the Child Protective Services, like a pretty high level, like the top lady, who slept through her freaking alarm that morning. She missed the boat coming out to the island, and she was so high level, she says, "Don't do this thing until I'm there." No, we didn't know that.
Right.
All we knew is that we knew there was federal agents in boats off the coast of the other side of the island that weren't coming. So 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes pass, boom, we have this interaction with these kids, and I'm like, what do? I said, bring out this pen and paper. All I know is delay as long as possible until something happens, right? And so I'm like, okay, let's draw out how this thing is going to be. So start with the easy stuff. How is your compound going to be laid out? Where are you going to keep the kids? Where is these guys coming in? Everything else.
Compound.
Still, no agents came. I'm like, okay, well, let's go deeper in this business plan. Let's do a little spreadsheet here, right? How much? Let's talk about your customers. Do you have enough customers? Where do you get them from? How do you connect with them? And so writing all this stuff down was really informative to us of really how that industry was going. I get through that, and this is where we found out that they wanted to charge $100,000 per person and how much extra and everything else. And then still the agents weren't there. I'm like, how do I deal with this? I said,
$100,000 per membership. Country club, y'all. Country club. Do you understand? This was country club, human minor trafficking They pay $100,000 a year to be a part of this trafficking. And it's set up like a resort, hotel resort. But it ain't number minors in those rooms. Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna let you in on something most people don't know. Over 90% of top pro and college teams
about your product. Now, when the product is kids,
yeah,
that's a difficult conversation, right? And so I says, okay, here's my top line. Here's your revenue coming in. Now let's talk about the cost of goods, right? So, how much does it cost for a little Colombian? Female. How much does it cost for? What about? And there's like $2,500 there, and we're writing all these things. I said, what about an American? You have a little blonde American coming down. What does it cost for you to get one of those as part of your inventory? It's like $25,000. It was multiples of it. And then I'm writing all this down. I'm thinking, okay, this is our cost of goods. Now what extra are you charging? Now, this part you may edit out, but I'm just going to go there. You can decide what you want to do with it. I said, okay, this is how much you charge for the fees. What about the 0 kilometer miles? You charge me $2,000 for that one, $5,000 for that one. Is that just because you were taking advantage of me because I have money? Or is that really what you charge? He goes, no, that's really what we charge for ones that age and the 0 kilometer. I said, okay, after the first time, does it drop to 500? Does it drop to 1,000? What does it drop to? The female trafficker said, oh no, we can sell them as 0 kilometers more than once. I said, how does that happen? I mean, how do you do that? She goes, she said, it only costs $200 to sew back their hymen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the fuck?
All right.
How does somebody get so disconnected from humanity?
That is horrible.
To think that's okay ever. To think that selling
babies,
children is okay ever. It was so dark. I was suffocating in the conversation. I thought, how can I deal with this level? I just wanted to shoot them all right there. I'm like, how do we deal with this? And, I changed the conversation, and finally I'm like, how do we delay some more? Finally, I couldn't deal with this conversation anymore. I was done with this conversation. I said, you know what? I said, you guys have proven to me that you know your market. You've proven to me that you have the access to the inventory, you have access to the product, you have access to the customers. It sounds like this could be really profitable. I says, I'm willing to put in the money. I said, but I want 55%. I want controlling interest in everything. That leaves 45% for the rest of you guys. And there was a bunch of traffickers that were there. And I said,
bunch of traffickers.
I pointed at one of them, Edouard, who had actually owned the property they wanted to develop. And I said, you've done the most, you're most involved with this. I think that you should get, of that 45%, you should probably get 30% of that. I said, that leaves about 15% for the rest of them. And all of a sudden, these guys start getting pissed, but not at me, at him. I'm like, oh, good, I can back away from this situation. I said,
what are you thinking? You don't know that these people, that these, whatever, the SWAT or whoever's going to swarm in, you don't know that they're ever coming.
I don't.
Are you not thinking, I got to back out of this situation? Like, how do I get myself out of this room?
The good thing is, before they even got on the boats to come out, I knew that the Navy SEALs that were there said, listen, this is a big party for Pablo. No guns, no knives, no problem, right? So they had taken all of the weapons, supposedly, hopefully, had taken all of the weapons. They even checked the girls' purses, the kids' purses, before they came to make sure there wasn't any weapons there. So I knew there was no weapons, number one. Number two, I had a whole bunch of my buddies that were hanging out in the park, in the pool and all around. There were former Navy SEALs, Green Berets. I've got a guy hit there that was a triple black belt Krav Maga. I don't know if you've ever heard of Krav, but it's Israeli Special Forces, hand-to-hand combat. It's the most lethal on earth. So it's one of the reasons why I got so involved with it is my training with him. So I knew he could handle it if it went bad, but we had no idea when they were coming.
I was if at all. Look, remove the danger. If there's no danger at all, it doesn't matter. You can't continue the charade forever. Is there any way for you to get a phone and call somebody and say, "What the fuck are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?"
Well, we had one of the other operators that kind of walked away, and he was trying to figure, but he couldn't communicate that with me.
Yeah,
because I'm literally face to face with these guys. So I'm just there. My role was delay. And so I said, okay, guys, I'm going to take 55% of this deal. I think that N0RS should take 30%. You guys got another 15, work that. And all of a sudden they start fighting. And they're like, I says, you know what? Why don't we work that out right now? You guys negotiate. And so they started just arguing with each other about who was going to get what percentage of the company and whatever else. It was almost 10, 15-minute argument between all of these guys when suddenly, boom, from all directions. We've got SWAT guys coming in, on the ground. I've got videos and stuff of this.
I was gonna say, and all this is being recorded, so it's not like these guys can say, man, I was just sitting here with Bob. No, you're arguing for your 10% or your 5% or 3%.
Exactly. So these guys are throwing us on the ground. Now these guys, I get thrown on the ground too. The guy behind me, my security, we called him La Sombra, the shadow. Boom, he takes me down. He's kind of protecting me, so to speak. I'm laying there on the hot sand. I've got ants crawling on my face. I was incredibly grateful to be laying on the hot sand with ants than to be in that conversation one more second.
Right.
And these guys are all, they put them separate. We were all laying there over on the beach area, and they're interrogating them. And about 30 Child Protective Services people came in with the children, and they were trying to settle them down, and they took these guys off with handcuffs. They put them all on the boats and got them out fairly quickly, so that they could let up on us a little bit after the traffickers were out. But we still they weren't supposed to tell the kids that we were the good guys, because we don't know how involved things were. And so I had to go to the bathroom. I got up and they came around the outside, and this bathroom area was it was kind of a grass roof, but you could hear what was going on over in the main area room where the children were. Mm-hmm. And these Child Protective Services people were in there with the kids, and I could hear them laughing with the kids, singing with the kids, and that sound of freedom. This is why we named the movie Sound of Freedom. That sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard, especially compared to the crying that we heard less than 45 minutes before. And I started crying. I turned to the operator who was with me. I said, I spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. I want to be involved. I want to help. I want to write bigger checks. What can I do? And he said, Paul, and sadly, there's a lot of demand for stuff like this is coming from guys like Jeffrey Epstein. He said, it's coming from guys who, don't take this wrong, Paul, but they dress and talk and act just like you. Mm-hmm. He said, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to, wear that suit and have that aura. He said, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life. So that was the beginning of what ended up being 70 plus undercover missions, FBI agents knocking on my door and, dealing with ex-cons, escaped convicts that were in different countries that were selling, this inventory. It was 10 years then of undercover work. I retired from my job, took down everything relating to Paul Hutchinson online, put together a fake profile. In fact, you'll love this story. So I went to my personal assistant and I said, Kitty. Now, Kitty's brilliant. She can type faster than I can think. She's just brilliant woman. And I said, Kitty, here's what I need. I need everything about me online. Take it down, everything. Whatever you have to do, you have to take everything down online. I said, I don't want my face anywhere. I said, nothing with my face tied to Paul Hutchinson online. I still have to have stuff with, being the owner of the companies and stuff on there, but nothing with my face. I said, but I've got all these pictures of me with Lambos and Ferraris and jets and yachts and everything else. Create a fake profile on Facebook, on Instagram, everything, a fake profile. I said, I want to stay as Paul because I don't want to have somebody say, hey, Steve, and have me not turn. So there's a million Pauls out there, so I'm going to stay as Paul. But I said, put together a fake profile under the name Paul Johnson. And she's sitting there typing, and she stops. And she looks up at me and she said, you have a chance to redefine yourself.
You're going with Johnson.
And you're going with Paul Johnson, yeah. Exactly. She said, how about Paul Stone? And she puts together this Paul Stone profile, and and I knew that these guys, some of them were pretty in depth about their background checks and everything else. So we had some people put together a fake web page with a bunch of links coming into it. My web page for Paul Stone and Paul Stone Capital was as good as my regular business web pages, and it was deep and it was on point. I had a fake phone number, a fake address, everything else. I didn't live in Utah, I lived in California. I didn't run Bridge, I run Paul Stone Capital, like all of these different things. And I'm like, okay, we've got to figure out how to have real followers, real friends with Paul Stone, but I can't have anybody that's tied to the real me whatsoever. So I went on and I said, okay, a lot of this stuff I came up with. This CIA guys, none of these guys helped me work the fake profile. So I went on and I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do.
Can y'all still hear?
Facebook, and I tell them my job of wherever I worked, and throws up suggestions of people who worked at that same job. So I went online and found some seedy modeling agencies, some lingerie modeling agencies in Latin America, and said that I was a talent scout for these modeling agencies, or a photographer for these modeling agencies, and boom, as my job. And it would show up a bunch of people that were suggestions as friends, and then I'd friend request them, and they'd say, oh, he's a model scout for this modeling thing. So they would accept my friend request, and then I would go in and find friends of theirs, because now we have friends in common.
Right.
Literally within a couple weeks, I had 700 friends. They were all scantily dressed models and thugs throughout Latin America with zero connection with Paul Hutchinson.
I can't help it if I'm up and see them watching
Hutchinson.
I would say exactly the kind of friends that a weirdo
would have.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And they wanted to be friends with me because they look on there, and I've got pictures with me with Lambos and Ferraris and jets, this lifestyle that they're like, oh, this is a badass. And so, boom, I build up this fake profile online that looked really legit. With if you've got even just 700 friends, you don't have to have hundreds of thousands. You got 700 friends that are all dressed like that and looking like that, then you check out to most people.
Yeah, it all supports everything.
Yeah,
and you can always try and connect like your website to the Instagram, which just keeps re-supporting. You know what I'm saying? Over and over. So these guys find this link. Oh, look, he's also got a website. Oh, look, he's also got a LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Oh, and it's all supportive. And they're like, oh, he's absolutely legit.
Exactly. In fact, years later, I had done some undercover work in Cancun, and one of the guys was an escaped convict from the U.S. that was just doing some horrific things across the border, and the op went bad. We ended up, he was at odds with another trafficking ring that was down there. He was also connected with the police, and I can tell that story later about how we got arrested for real down there. But the story here about my profile, I was so careful. I even logged in using VPNs on everything. My burner phone was one that I went through on a Google voice, forwarding and everything else. I was really, really careful because I didn't know how high level these guys were in my undercover profile and everything. And one day, and this was like 5 years into undercover work, I get a boom, boom, boom knock on my door. Now, I live in a very, very, very secure community. Nobody knocks on my door unless I get a call from the guard before and verifying that somebody's there. Nobody just knocks on my door ever. You don't have door-to-door guys in there. And this was my retarded house, right? This is the one that had 10 bathrooms and a basketball court in my basement, and all this stuff, right? So I'm sitting there in my beautiful living room, and I go boom, boom, knock on my door, and I open the door, and there's this man standing there. I've never met him before, and I could see a gun, underneath his jacket a little bit. And he said, "I'm looking for Paul Hutchinson, aka Paul Stone." Now nobody knew that's not good at all. Yeah, I'm like, oh shit. How did my carefully constructed life is ready to come to an end right now? I don't know what's going on here, but nobody knows that name except for the guys that are in my, and he was upset about something. He was mad. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, okay, I know how to disarm this if he goes for the gun or whatever. How do I deal with this? And I said, yeah, I'm Paul. And he reaches, good thing he wasn't reaching towards his gun side. He reached to the inside of his jacket and he pulls out some papers and he gives me an FBI grand jury, a summon, a subpoena to an FBI grand jury in
this is a U.S. Marshal.
Yeah.
That's how he got through the gate.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like, okay, FBI grand jury in South California, okay, with no other information on it at all. I'm like, okay, thank you, or not. Yeah. And I called up my attorney. I said, what do I do about this? I sent pictures of it. And he goes, let me handle this. I says, okay, and I'm laying there on the, my couch and just waiting, wonder what's going on. What did I get in trouble for? What did they find out? Right? This is a pretty big deal. And he calls me back laughing. I said, it's not funny, but I'm happy you're happy. Yeah. This is, tell me what's going on. He said, you'll never guess what happened. He said, you remember that escaped felon that you were with in Tijuana? He said, well, the FBI caught up with him and took him down. Even though, your op went bad and you couldn't finish that operation there. He said they took him down and then they ended up getting a Google subpoena to get into his phone and into his Gmail. And in his Gmail, he was emailing back and forth, coordinating this party with this guy by the name of Paul Stone. He said, so the FBI actually got a subpoena to go into Paul Stone's email to figure out who Paul Stone was. He said they had no ability to find you. There was nothing that was tying Paul Stone to you. He said they spent a bunch of time trying to figure out who Paul Stone was so they could get him. So I had done a good enough job to even throw off the FBI, right? And he said, finally, there was one email in there that I made a mistake on. One of the traffickers had sent me some stuff that I forwarded on to a guy who was working with us who was former CIA. He was CIA for about 14 years. And I forwarded it on to his email, his personal email. So they saw a forwarded email inside Paul Stone to a former CIA guy.
So they were able to contact him, and he said, this is the guy.
Yeah, exactly. And he said, when they contacted him and they had him under a gag order, I told him later, I said, Matt, why the hell didn't you call me and tell me? He said, I couldn't. Yeah. He said they have to go through their process. I couldn't call you at all. He said, so I told him, yeah. He says, that's Paul Hutchinson. He's led 30 plus undercover missions for us at the time, and he's really good at it. They're like, yeah, okay. So I get this grand subpoena. So I end up calling the special agent in charge in California and tell her, I give her all of the details, my interactions back and forth with the head of the federal police in Mexico, all of my interactions with this felon. And I was actually surprised that they didn't end up bringing me in with another, trying to recruit me into the FBI. I don't care. I didn't, I like playing cop and I was perfectly happy where I was. But that told me that I did a good job.
So I bought a $500 bottle of Creative Rentis because it's the world's most popular fragrance.
Good job in making hiding myself in the right way.
Yeah, if you have to pull the FBI and the NSA, can't find you, you're probably doing all right. But
exactly.
As far as the U.S. Marshals are concerned, like on their best day, they still have an attitude.
Exactly.
So they always come off as very gruff.
Exactly.
They're not people.
You're going down.
They're not people pleasers.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't know that at all. I thought I was in trouble for something pretty big. So.
Yeah, and that cop knock, pow, 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 pow. It's like, geez, bro, what are you doing?
Exactly. They don't knock nicely.
Yeah. So what happens at that point? Like, I mean, are you changing your identity every time you do a different sting operation, or are you keeping it the same? Because when these guys, because at some point these guys, when they get grabbed, even though they're grabbing you too, at some point they probably have to put it together. Like, I think this guy was in on it somehow. You know?
Yeah. I make sure that I'm handled roughly by the feds when they take us down and whatnot. And yes, I changed from Paul Stone to Paul Steele to Paul Black. You know, there was a bunch of different ones, but a lot of those were based on my other operators. And immediately he turns around. He said, "This is very bad for you." He said, "It's going to cost you at least $50,000 and 6 months of your life in prison here, paying off judges, whatever you have to do to get out." He said, "Or you pay me $10,000 right now."
Oh, I went too far.
He said, "You pay me $10,000 in the countries that we were at," because a lot of these traffickers, if you're a white guy Paul Stone was just a guy that deep undercover guys would show my profile with the Ferraris and Lambos and everything else. This is a guy coming in paying for all of this stuff and whatever. And these guys would, they would contact all the other traffickers in the area and bring all of the inventory together at the same time. And we did major stings using that, but that was only about a year and a half. And then what happened is the foundation I was working with at the time, one of the former government agents, he came to me, he said, "Paul," he said, our board of directors wants to shut down operations because it's too dangerous to have anybody that's part of the foundation doing the deep cover. He said, "You're really good at this." And I was funding everything myself. I had to actually get off of the board of directors of that foundation because I love doing the undercover work. But I was just the rich guy. I said, "Yeah, I'll do the deep cover, 2 a.m. in downtown Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and downtown Mexico City, connecting with these guys. But I couldn't go in as the rich guy. That would be dangerous. I needed to be working for a guy with the money, right? So I then changed to Paul Steele. And Paul Steele, he'd set up parties for a boss. However, my boss would kill me and my whole family if I, taste the candy before the party, but I have to make sure you have the candy type of a thing. And so this is how I started operating in the dark. And a lot of my really dangerous operations came from there. In fact, the one I just told you about the FBI coming, when I had received a phone call, a few months before from the head of the federal police in Mexico. And he said, "Paul," he said, there's a lot of trafficking coming across the border into Mexicali, into Tijuana. He said, I'd love to have your team help us." So I wasn't working for the U.S. State Department. I was working with the federal agents in the countries that we were at, because a lot of these traffickers, if you're a white guy down there with an attitude, they'll bring out all of their stuff. And it was really easy for us to capture the attention of the traffickers, where some Latino, some Mexican undercover guy, that wouldn't work as well. And so when we were down there, it was literally within an hour or two, we were able to connect with this felon, the one that the FBI eventually got. But then we wanted to make sure we connected with all of the traffickers in the area. And so we were working with some others, and we were told that this other trafficker had a hotel that was known in the area for a place that you can buy, those kind of models. And so we were at that hotel. One of his guys had brought us there. We were waiting inside for him to bring us a 9 and 11-year-old so we could verify he had what our boss wanted. It was 2 a.m. This is Tijuana at the time was the highest murder capita rate in the world of any city, right? And it's at 2 a.m. in an area, the most dangerous part of the city, sitting inside this hotel that is owned by a trafficker. And so we're sitting in there, and one of my Krav Maga trainers, he's like, "Paul," he said, "Oh, this is a kill zone." He said, "We can't stay in here. There's no back way. Is barred off." He said, "The only way out is the front." He said, "We can't stay here." So I'm like, okay, well, so we walk out front. And as we're out front, because we're waiting outside for him to bring, the models for us to see. And it was about 2 a.m. And there's a police officer that drives up. He rolls down his window. He said, You guys want to ride? We're like, no, we're good. He says, what are you doing? I said, we're just waiting for our Uber. Yeah, right. 5 white guys in that part of town at 2 a.m. Right? We're up to no good for sure.
They have it. Do you want it?
So he says, okay, and he goes around the corner, and
In the furniture business, things move fast. ZipRecruiter helps us hire qualified candidates who can keep.
So he says, okay, and he goes around the corner, and about 1 or 2 minutes later, poof, from all directions, 7 police officers on the ground. We're like, shit, okay.
Shakedown.
Yeah, shakedown. So we're getting arrested there. Now, what we found out is that he was actually the other trafficker that formed the escaped felon. He was friends with the head of the police down there, right? So we get arrested. We get put in these couple cars, me and my other operators, and immediately he turns around. He said, this is very bad for you. He said, it's going to cost you at least $50,000 and it's 6 months of your life in prison here, paying off judges, whatever you have to do to get out. He said, or you pay me $10,000 right now. He said, you pay me $10,000, I'll make this all go away. We'll just stop at the next stop sign. He says, trust me, this isn't for me. I have to use it to keep my streets safe. I'm going to use it to pay my officers, right?
You're a humanitarian.
And I'm like, yeah, right. I said, I don't have all that on me right now. He goes, give me what you have, and I'm handcuffed here. And he says, tell you what, give me your phone. Give me your phone. So, I've got my handcuff here, and I'm handcuffed to my security guy. And pull out my phone, I hand it to him. He said, unlock it. I said, you know what? I need to make a phone call. I'm going to call my attorney. He said, you don't get an attorney. He says, you don't even get a phone call. You're in Mexico. He said, see that building? That's a Mexican prison. He said, how about this? I put you and your guys in there. 4 days from now, you decide if you want to unlock your phone for me.
You'll be begging to unlock your phone.
Exactly. I'm like, okay. So I unlock my phone for him, and it's my burner phone, but it's the one I use on the undercover missions. And he's going through. He's going, show me your pictures. He's going through my web history and stuff. I says, I don't look. This is bullshit. You're looking for a S party with kids. Of course, you got that on your phone. And there's nothing there. And he goes, and then he starts going through my pictures, my folders on my phone, and he opens up this one called Cancun. And it was the operation we had done a little bit before, and it had some of the pictures of what the traffickers had sent me. Now they're fully clothed, but they're obviously 11, 12 years old, right? And he's like, oh, this is all I need. This is all I need right here. You're going to prison right now. And my agent who was handcuffed to me, he goes, you think we should blow our cover? I said, yeah, maybe we should. I mean, we had just literally been in the city only last day, right? I said, sir, why don't you go to that next folder, click that next folder, and zoom in on that picture. I said, and it's me with my other operators, and it's the top federal agents in Mexico. They were all posing with us after the end of the sting that we did in Colombia, or in Cancun. And so they're all there. I says, that's me right there. Those are my other office operators in the other car. Those are the top federal agents in Mexico. And now go to that next picture. It goes to the next one. I said, that's me with President Vicente Fox. I'm in his office on the red phone, right? I said, I help your country find children. Now, at this point, this was really our only way out, because if he knew that I was there on authorization from the head of the federal police in the Mexico, and he needed to comply really fast. So
now he owes you $10,000.
Exactly.
I'm going to need everything you got. Give me your phone.
Exactly. So he stops the car. Boom. The other car stops behind. He gets out, unhandcuffs us, and the other ones. He's like, "Can I take you guys somewhere? Where can I take you?" And we're like, "No, we're good. Right? We're good." We go to our hotel, and at that point, we knew that our cover was blown. Because obviously, he was dirty. He was working with the other traffickers and stuff. We're over. We have to get out of town. We end up going down to Ensenada and down to Rosarita Beach and some others, and that was a whole other crazy story down there. But that was why that operation got blown, and why a few months later I get a knock on my door from the FBI agent saying, and the case. Fortunately, I'm super happy that they ended up taking down that felon. Because it made me sad. There was a number of operations, of those 70 missions we did, there was a number of operations that didn't turn out as good. is what we
And
found.
then just in Mexico,
there was a lot of them where the
Mexico.
bad guys got away. There was some of them where I had operators that got killed. I had one operator that got stabbed 27 times in the Dominican Republic. He ended up making it. I had another operator in Haiti who didn't make it. In fact, I actually met my wife at his funeral. I had done 12 undercover missions in Haiti, and we had taken down the largest trafficking rings in the Caribbean, along with 4 corrupt federal judges as part of it. And it was so high level.
Ooh, y'all hear that?
Really dangerous. Haiti's already dangerous. And,
That's in
Jim ended
Haiti.
up
Why is this?
not making it. I was at his
Oh,
funeral
wow.
when I met
This
my
is
wife.
heavily organized.
Can I ask a question?
Oh,
Is it
wow.
when you go into these areas, I mean, you're going into another country. Like, are you guys? And I understand you're at some point you're communicating with the locals, but you're not really telling the local law enforcement you're coming in until you have to, because otherwise you're not getting anywhere. Are you going in there, and are these guys that are with you armed?
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so they're going in unarmed.
Yeah, unarmed.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is, and that's the reason why guys like Joseph. So Joseph is double black belt Krav Maga. He's actually, I don't know what his black belt is now, but
and that's great. But if the other guy's got an AK-47,
exactly, then you're done. Yeah. If you're really, our strength is knowing what to say at the right time. If they knew who we were in an instant, we would have been gone. We had no firepower to be able to handle it if things went bad. In fact, interesting on that. So we were in Mexico City, and we had identified some rings that were trafficking their kids in from Tenancinga, which is a really dangerous part of Mexico.
Okay, so y'all remember T-Sippers? I mean, I know the guests are not gonna know what I'm talking about, but do y'all remember? We're gonna have to going back to the ADOLPH and the I don't know, not necessarily Mo 3, but definitely ADOLPH. When we was talking about how the Sinaloa cartel is tied to Craig Pettis and what's his name, Hernandez Govan and Quet, Orange Mound Quet, and Lil Flip in Houston, and all that was going on in Houston. And then the cartel got busted in El Paso. Thought he was finna go to another island, El Chapo son, and y'all remember what I'm talking about? This is and then it was said that Diddy was being sued by the same Sinaloa cartel, Mexico cartel. So he definitely has ties to that cartel. He was doing business, because remember, they was suing him because a business deal, although it was illegal, the business deal that they was suing him for in the U.S. for illegal drug, I can't say drug, just illegal activity. It just goes to show, I don't know what's going on with my devices. This one up here is spinning, and this one right here don't want to come on. Are y'all still with me? Hi, Joseph. Yeah, it's insane. It's still up here talking about still not responsive. Y'all can't see it though. That's why I keep asking, can y'all hear me? Or can y'all hear? Because this device, y'all see it up there? It's saying non-responsive. So some of the devices is operating and my main computer is not. So hold on. Yeah, so when I'm listening to all of this Colombia and Mexico, Tijuana, and all of this Mexico activity, I'm still hearing Diddy. I'm still hearing Diddy. I mean, because it was almost insane to hear that the cartel was suing Diddy in the U.S. for illegal activity. I mean, it didn't go nowhere. It's just the point of it. So what business was it really that he was suing him for? It ain't over till it's over. Yeah.
To a place called into Puerto Vallarta, and so we had followed that ring.
Oh, I loved that part of Puerto Vallarta.
I had spent almost 4 months in undercover. I would go in for a weekend, connect with some traffickers, fly out, go back in, connect with some traffickers, and it was a cesspool
heavy trafficking
of trafficking going on.
With the cartel.
We had identified 40 children. Remember,
as far as Dolph goes, Quet was involved with that human trafficking too, because he snitched on Yabro. T-Rex.
Identified 9 traffickers.
I told y'all it's all full circle. I've been telling y'all that.
We needed to figure out how, if we just take down one of them, the rest of them just disappear and we lose those kids. So we have to stay in undercover long enough to find out everybody who's involved, get them to bring everybody to the same place at the same time. One of the traffickers, we called him Scarface. He had this huge scar that was going all the way down his neck. And I had connected with him through a taxi driver who had worked with the cartel down there, who had introduced me to this guy and got us in that ring. And this guy was selling a lot of, he was a bad dude. Right. And it was about 4 days before the sting. I didn't trust any of the local police at all. We were so high level with the traffickers there that I'm sure that a lot of them were on payroll with the traffickers. And so we flew 2 federal agents from Mexico City to come and help us set up the final parts of the sting. And we're there in the hotel, and I'm calling each one of the guys that I had, all of the traffickers I connected with over the years, or over the last 4 months, sorry. And I got a hold of all of them except for Scarface. His phone was dead.
Let me tell you about my experience with the 5-day juice cleanse. As someone who's always on the go, I was a bit skeptical.
His phone was dead. And I'm like, guys, we have to get this guy. He is incredibly dangerous, and he has to go to prison forever. So I don't have his phone number. I don't have the taxi driver's phone number. But I know the area that I first met him. So you guys, the 2 federal agents, stay here in the hotel. I'm going to go out with a couple of my guys. We're going to go out to the dark area. We're going to reconnect with him through the same sources we did in the beginning. So we're out there. We're talking to some, taxi drivers in this super dark area of town. I says, hey, do you know this guy? Oh, yeah, I know him. Hey, have him call me. Tell him Pablo's in town. Tell him, I'll give you $100 if he calls me. He'll be happy because we're having the party and he'll want to know about it. Okay. So boom, sure enough, he calls me and he says, hey, meet me at the boardwalk. Okay, we'll meet you there. I give you $100 to the taxi driver, and we're sitting there at the boardwalk waiting for him. We're sitting, waiting, and all of a sudden, just like what happened in Tijuana, from all directions. Now this time we had 10 officers, full automatic weapons on us. On the ground. We're like, shit, okay. So we're getting handcuffed. Now, I know that half the cops in that area are dirty, right? So we're getting handcuffed, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know if these are dirty cops, I don't know if they're clean cops. Either way, hopefully they take us to the jail. And I would rather spend 3 days in a Mexican prison. At this point, I had worked long enough on this case. I would rather spend 3 days in a Mexican prison than to lose those 48 kids, right? And so they throw us on the ground. They're handcuffed us. I can show you some videos later. I mean, the handcuffs were so tight. I still have nerve damage. If I just touch right here, this all just tingles, right? All the way up my hand. And so when they throw us on the ground and they pick us up, they put us in the back of the police pickup trucks. The ones that have the benches on the side and the guys are holding all the guns there right on the side. And we're laying there on the ground. We've got cop cars in the front and the back. And I'm thinking, okay, they'll take us to the jail. The 2 federal officers that are at my hotel, they'll see we're gone after a bit, and they'll find out about it. Maybe they could be our phone call. I don't know. And they'll come and they'll say, hey, this is a federal case. We need to take over, and nobody will know, right? We'll be good. Well, they don't take us to the jail. They start taking us out in the desert right? They start taking us with no lights, this is where shit goes down. Right? And you know, at this point, I'm as scared for the police as I am for us. So here's why. Let me paint a picture of Joseph. Joseph is one of only 10 that I know of Krav Maga trainers that's qualified to train the trainers. And for the audience who doesn't know Krav, regular martial arts and karate, jiu-jitsu, bow to your sensei, 3 points when you kick him in the leg, right? It's a sports type of defense. You don't train against kick him in the balls, poking their eyes out. Krav Maga is brick to their head, go home to your family. Israeli Special Forces, hand-to-hand combat, most lethal on earth. Every move, they don't talk, they don't see, they don't walk, they don't breathe, they're done, right? I can take away a gun faster than they can pull the trigger every single time. We've trained hundreds and hundreds of integrations of every single angle just so that you have muscle memory on everything. Well, my trainer was Joseph, one of the best in the world, qualified, and I think he's the only non-Israeli qualified to go back to Israel and train them. Well, Joseph was with me and Jimmy and Joseph. And Joseph was there, and he had 3 tequilas at dinner that night. And he was a little bit tipsy. So when they threw us on the ground and they were handcuffing us, he's laying there, he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill him. I said, bro, you can't kill him, right? We don't know if they're good cops. He says, they're bad cops. I know they're bad cops, right? And they pick us up and they throw us in the back of the pickup truck and they start going out of the city. Joseph's getting madder by the second. Me and Jimmy are like, Joseph, shut up. We've got M16s to our heads. We're both handcuffed right now. Shut up. He's like, you guys better let us go now. We're going to take you all out, right? Shut up. So finally, the truck stops. They get out, and the police come back. We've got a couple guys with guns. We've got a guy with batons. They're pulling us out. And one of them says to me, he says, you're asking for Scarface? I said, yeah. He said, I arrested him myself for selling children. He said, now you're going to tell me everything. And I said, I'm really happy you said that. Right. I said, now, because that told me they were good cops, right? I said, I'm really happy you said that. Now I can tell you who I really am. I said, we have 2 federal agents in our hotel room. He goes, bullshit. He says, no. I said, give me my phone. We'll call him right now. He says, you're not getting your phone. You're going to tell me everything. He's got a baton. And Joseph's like, it's going down. I said, Joseph, shut up. These guys are good cops, right? Just shut up, right? And I said, guys, before anything happens, and I'm handcuffed, right? And my pants, my undercover pants, I had, you remember those pants where you can zip off the shorts, so they turn into shorts, long pants to shorts. It has a zipper kind of halfway down the knee, right? So I says, guys, somebody has to unzip part of that. I had a hidden pocket that was inside of it. I says, somebody has to unzip that right now. And so somebody unzipped it, and inside of it, I had a laminated card. It was my picture. It was signed by the head of the federal police. Basically, if they don't give me their car, their guns, they go to jail, right? It's the best get out of jail free card anywhere. He looks at it and he's like, takes it to the chief of police that's up in the front car, and he comes out, shaking. They unhandcuff us faster than we were handcuffed, all 10 of them. But they're we're lo siento, we're so sorry. I said, no, this is how you should treat people who are buying children in your country. I said, but you should take them out in the desert and beat them up. Kill him, whatever you have to do. I'm fine with that. They're wasting my oxygen. I said, but I don't know who to trust. I said, if anybody of your 10 agents, if anybody says anything to anybody that I just showed you that card, your entire department's under investigation. Do you understand? He goes, yes, sir. I'm so sorry. So 4 days later, the largest child rescue mission in Mexico history with the 48 children. But it was a close call.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I probably still would have been like, yeah, we got to go. Yeah, one of these guys is going to talk. They're going to say something to somebody. You know what I'm saying? You could end up getting, the cartel will go down and just gun down everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very risky.
So, of course, that's the last time I've ever been in Puerto Vallarta.
Right.
Most of these cities.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So, everybody's seen the movie Taken, right? So how are they getting a hold of, let's say, the product? Like, in that movie, of course those are teen girls, but, how are these guys going into a very poor community and going to their families and saying, look, you got too many kids. Let me, this 9-year-old or 11-year-old, let me give you $200 and I'll just take her. She's a burden to you. We're gonna have her go and she's gonna work on a farm with puppies and all the bullshit that they say to just justify what you're about to do, so you can feel good about it. or she's going to go live with a rich family, or whatever they tell them. And here's $200 from the rich family, and whatever justification they need to give you or their family. Or is it they pull up in a van, throw a bag over their head, and yank them in the van, and hit them with a taser, and they wake up in a city somewhere, in a warehouse somewhere, chained to a bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm wondering where are they coming from?
Yeah, well, and the majority of children don't come from a healthy family. You know, people will leave Sound of Freedom and they'll be like, oh, I want to do something. I want to go undercover. I want to help rescue kids. Well, the worst thing you can do is go to Mexico and try to do a child rescue mission. You're going to get shot. Yeah. Right? You're probably going to get arrested. The best thing you can do is go home and hug your children. And people are like, well, how does hugging my children help it? Well, creating that strong nuclear family is everything. The majority of children who are being taken to other countries and sold like what we saw undercover, the majority of those children come from broken homes, runaways, a broken foster care program. It's a very, very broken foster care program. And in doing so, these kids are abused. Now, here's the other thing that's super important to understand for parents of affluent or even, you know, healthy families in any way. The majority of children who are being sold for these unthinkable acts sleep in their own beds at night, and their parents have no idea. Okay? Yeah. So, for example, we, you know, in third world countries and even here in the U.S., for example, we were in Acapulco, and one of the little kids, she was 12. She just turned 13 years old. Her babysitter was her aunt. Her aunt was working with the traffickers. Her aunt was babysitting her, showing her pictures, and her aunt told her, listen, you're going to lose your virginity sometime anyway. Lose it to one of these rich Americans. You'll earn $500. She was charging us $5,000 for this child, right? And the mother had no idea what was going on. This happens a lot. In fact, you need a relationship with your children.
Sparkle with R. Kelly.
Come to you and say when something's off.
Sparkle, she pimped her niece.
I don't like it when you tell me I have to hug Uncle Harry because, you know, he touches me weird and he tells us we should have secrets outside of you, or I don't like going to this friend's house because her brother is taking pictures of us when we're changing, and now he tells us he's going to use those pictures and send them around the school if we don't do other things with him and his friends later, or I don't like this babysitter. She's showing us pictures, tells us that we should trust her more than you. These are grooming behaviors, and 92% of the abuse of children comes from familial members, somebody in their family, somebody they know, and some of those are actually being trafficked. They're being using monetary exchange for what they're doing with the children, which is just horrific. Either way, monetary or not, it's still bad for the kids, right? And so, and there's some things that, like right now, there's something that parents need to be aware of called, that we call it sextortion, right? Where you get something and then you control the victim. That sextortion can happen not only with a known predator, but somebody that your 13-year-old thinks is another 13-year-old that's really not online, convinces them to send some pictures and then uses that as leverage to do more and more and more. Or there's actually AI programs today that are what they call nudify programs, that you can literally take any actress, any actor, anywhere, and boom, take off their clothes, and it gives you a realistic picture of them nude. Those programs are being used to do the same thing with adolescents, and then using that picture that wasn't even a real picture in the first place to create this extortion type of a thing and convince them to do other stuff. And so this happens a lot. Now, yes, there are children taken from healthy families. I didn't say wealthy families, I said healthy ones. It's usually in Latin America. And I don't want to get political here, but I will say that the last number of years, there's been 130,000 children, unaccompanied minors, children coming across the open border. And I've served a lot in Latin America, and almost every single day in cities throughout Latin America, children are being taken from a healthy family. They don't have the resources to follow up on what's going on. And just like what you see in the Sound of Freedom movie, they're controlling these children. Like this little boy who, you don't want something bad to happen to your sister, do you? You're going to do exactly what we say. And these kids are drugged. They're abused. And
that's how Cassie mama got extorted.
I know where your sister goes to school. And less than 2 or 3 weeks after they are taken, they can show up on the border with a name tag and an address, with a phone number and address of their new, quote, sponsor. And those sponsors don't have FBI background checks. There's no guarantee that they have any connection to that child whatsoever. And because of the fact that remember my very first mission, it was going to cost them $25,000 to get a little American down here for the demand. They now realize that they could take the supply to the demand, bringing it across the border. And the United States is the #1 producer and consumer of child pictures in the world. And because of that, it's kind of a gateway into it. These guys that, you know, they get addicted to hardcore pictures and they need something harder to have that same fix. Pretty soon they're fantasizing about something they wouldn't have even thought was attractive 5 years ago. And then they're acting out on these horrific fantasies.
That's Diddy, y'all.
Tsunami of demand that
I mean, not with kids, but
the United States. On the Haiti rescue, you know, I had done a bunch of deep cover work in Haiti. And we were tired of the trafficking continuing to come up. We wanted to cut the head off the dragon, right? So, you know, following up, finding really where the traffickers going, and it culminated in this sting operation that was on this beach area. And we had a private yacht. One of my investors in my investment fund had said, "Hey, Paul, if you ever want to use my yacht for one of your things, you just let me know, you know." And so this was an opportunity because we had a high-level celebrity that wanted to see it as well. And we're like, okay, we have to keep him away from the traffickers, but we have to let him see it. And so we had this yacht literally docked right off the coast. And this nice yacht, and this 52-foot wide catamaran. He toured around the world in this thing. And I had done a bunch of deep cover, showed up with traffickers. They brought about 34 kids with them, but they represented hundreds and hundreds of more. So we were there, and they, let me figure out. So I told the traffickers, we're going to go see the big boss out on the yacht. No guns, no knives, no problem, right? So we take off all of their weapons and stuff. We get on this dinghy, go out there, have our undercover cameras there recording what they're saying. Had the big boss was kind of hanging about on a couch with a beautiful woman waving him, and we have our Navy SEALs there. Captured all that we needed to. Get back on the dinghy, goes back to the beach. We're in this enclosed area in this house. Put all the children in a safe place. They're in a little cabana. They've got ice cream and drinks, etc. We're there negotiating with the traffickers about what's going on, waiting for the federal agents to come in. And at this point, we had a guy who used to be a pretty high position at Homeland Security, who was now working with the foundation at the time. And he was on the yacht with us, and he said, "Hey, he had convinced whoever was in charge at the time that he wanted to come and actually be part of the sting and see how that works." So when we put the traffickers back on the dinghy and start heading back, he gets on the boat with us. I'm like, bro, this guy hasn't had any field experience, but okay, you know, he's man in charge. He was now the new president of that, whatever. So they go back into the beach. We get out. We're there negotiating with the traffickers. Boom, the agents come in from all sides. Boom, blowing the door. They're busting the door, and then we're throwing on the ground. We're getting handcuffed. They run out of handcuffs. They had so many traffickers there. They run out of handcuffs, and so they zip tie me and him, and so I've got not little ones, a big fat. I can get out a little hand, and they're behind my back, so I'm zip tied back there. And the agent who was on top of me didn't know I was a good guy,
right?
And so he's patting me down. And usually on these rescue missions, on the day of the sting, I'll send all of my luggage and everything to the airport beforehand. So when they throw me in the police car, they take us instead of going to the jail, they take us right to the airport. Boom, we're out of country. Well, in order to do that, I keep my passport on an inner pocket. That's the only time I ever have a real identification of me is on the day of the sting itself. So I got this passport in my inside pocket, and this agent didn't know I was a good guy. Throws us on the ground and puts zip ties on us, and then patting me down, feels my passport on the inside. Goes in and gets my passport out and throws it on the evidence pile, all the traffickers' stuff. I'm like, that's my real passport. You know, I can't say anything. Right. The traffickers are right there. And then they pick us up, they take us out, and boom, I get hit on the side of the face by a rock. And all of a sudden there was all this gravel, these rocks. The locals had found out that there was one of these parties going on. Right. They were pissed. And so they were throwing rocks at us because they, of course, didn't know that we were good guys either, right? And this federal agent did. And so there was a Haitian federal agent. So he takes us out, boom, puts us in the back of a police car where the head of the federal police was in there. He's our friend. He knows us, right? And boom, the locals are like, boom, 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 pounding on the outside of the car. I'm there with this former HSI guy, and he had never been in this kind of stuff before, and he's pissing his pants, right? He's like, boom, pounding on the back of the car, boom, he pulls out of there and gets to safety away from all the crowd and everything else. He says, okay, I've got handcuff keys. And I'm like, oh, you know what? We don't have handcuffs. We've got zip ties. He said, well, I don't have a knife or pliers on me. You have to deal with that. I said, we have a bigger problem than that. I said, my passport is back there on the evidence pile. The agent just pulled it out and put it up there. He says, well, we can't go back there. That's a war zone. I said, I know. He said, we have to wait until it all comes back to the police headquarters. So we drive to the police headquarters, with the plane's waiting for me. We had a private plane to get us out of there at the time. And finally, all of the stuff comes, boom, we get on the plane, and it was beautiful. We get back to the U.S. 2 weeks later.
You got your passport?
Yeah, they gave it to me because we waited at the police center. So we got the passport. Yeah, we waited there at the police center. Boom, got the passport. Got on the plane. Got back to the U.S. 2 weeks later, we find out that 4 corrupt federal judges let the traffickers out of prison and let all the kids back out. I mean, they're some of the kids were in safe places and whatever, but now these traffickers are still out there with some of the other ones, and their excuse of why they let them out is that the real bad guy got away. The real bad guy was that American that was here trying to set up the party. This is what the federal judges were saying, right? But it wasn't Paul Stone, it wasn't Paul Steele, it wasn't Paul Black. It was Paul Hutchinson. What happened is I didn't know this, but they had taken my passport before I got it back, and somebody had entered it in with all of the evidence. So they literally had my real information.
Right.
So at this point, Paul Hutchinson becomes the equivalent of Haiti's Most Wanted, right? I'm like, oh, now I can't ever go. I didn't ever want to go back anyway, right? So we had to fly the first lady, the head of the federal police, the attorney general, flew them to the U.S. I presented all of the stuff together with some of the operators there of exactly what happened with that operation. Every single text and stuff back and forth with these guys, and the head of the federal police, he stands up. He said, I don't care if I lose my job. I don't care if I lose my life. I'm going to fix the corruption in my country. And they went back in. They rearrested the traffickers, took down these 4 federal judges, and
okay, y'all, I'm out of juice.
Sadly, that officer was the one that got high enough where the assassination of the president, the burning of the things in the streets, a lot of that was a power struggle that we opened up this Pandora's box to expose everybody who is doing the most nefarious things in the Caribbean, operating from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And so it got worse and worse and worse. That operator ended up getting killed, and I was the very last time I said, okay, I'll go to Haiti one more time. I'll go for his funeral. And so I was at his funeral, and I'm back at the airport getting ready to leave. Last time
I'm out of juice, y'all. I see y'all tomorrow. I'll be on a different device on the backup page.
Beautiful Colombian actress is kind of cool.